18-point agenda. Was it properly posted? All right. There is, like I said, 18 points. I'm probably going to move item number 10 up to accommodate Sue. So we'll have that discussion right after the zoning petition. So I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Gentis. Do I have a
I'll second it.
Second by Fleming. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Approved agenda. That brings us to approval of the June 26th and July 18th, 2023 land and zoning meeting minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look those over? If there's no changes, I would accept a motion to approve both of them at the same time. You were so inclined.
I'll make a motion to approve the June 26th and July 18th minutes.
All right, motion by Fleming. Second by.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. That brings us to item number 5, zoning petitions. We have and I sincerely apologize if I murder these names, but Skiba, is that how you say it? Okay. All right, so I'll have Mike give a little background, and then if you want to come to that mic right there, so if there's any questions from the committee, you are able to answer those.
So the background on this petition is that the lot was created after the township adopted county zoning. This isn't something recent. So it's a non-conforming parcel of 18.76 acres to bring into conformity with the ag residential zoning district. And the second part of the petition is that the residence would be a conditional use for a short-term rental.
Okay. All right, so why don't we get this on the floor for discussion? Would someone like to make a motion? Motion by
I'll make
Carol.
that.
Second by
I'll second it.
Fleming. Okay. All right. So discussion. So one thing I will let you know, I don't know if you've heard, but we are in the process of looking at creating an ordinance for short-term rentals. It's not complete yet, so you're doing the process as you should. I guess one question I have is are you aware that you need to get a DAT cap license in order to run a short-term rental?
Can you repeat the question?
Are you aware in order to run a short-term rental property anywhere in Wisconsin, you need to get a license from DAT cap, which is the Department of Ag and Trade Consumer Protection? Okay, she's nodding back there.
Yes, I think I have it applied with the Wisconsin.
With Wisconsin
Yes,
State,
yes,
yes.
I do.
Okay, I just want to make sure because that if you haven't, you will have to once our COP becomes, assuming we do pass an ordinance, that would be part of it. Okay.
Yeah, I already applied with Wisconsin. Yes.
Okay, great. Does the committee have any questions for the applicants?
Well, since we're just in that process and I don't know if we're going to pass something soon. I don't want to hold up things, but it seems like since we're talking about grandfathering in by next year, I was wondering if we could just wait 3 more weeks, or I don't know what process you're in. That's what I was wondering.
So essentially what she's asking is how soon are you looking to have this as an operational short-term rental?
So I have an inspector from Wisconsin coming in tomorrow, and after that, I'm ready to go. So this and the inspector tomorrow, I already passed the water test, so everything else is ready.
So one thing I will tell you, the one thing that we've been discussing is what process we're going to have people go through. And so it may be that we might change this from a CUP to a license that may be less costly than the $500, or it could be $500. We might do the CUP. So it's up to you. I mean, I understand your concern, Linda, but I feel like at this point, since we really have no idea how soon we might be passing something, I don't want to interfere with their ability to conduct business. But with the understanding for you that we may pass an ordinance that will give you a year to come into compliance with whatever our ordinance states, but that you will have, there may be some changes. At this point, we are not doing a lot of detailed, high level trying to control STRs, but we're really just trying to get a handle on making sure we have some common sense things in place.
Yeah,
So,
we're not anti what you're doing at all. We're pro that, but we're trying to be neighborly friendly and community minded. And so that it works well with the whole community.
for
right?
everybody, right? Trying to make sure we protect not only the people running the STRs, but also the people that live around them and especially full-time residents that are living near short-term rentals. So any other questions? Okay. Well, what you can come forward. Who are you? Oh, yes, then
This is the time.
this would be the time to talk. So you can go ahead and come forward and can you let her use that mic?
My name is Barbara Tackett Freeman. We have adjoining property with our new neighbors and welcome them. Wonderful people to talk to. My only concern was, and I had a private conversation, was if they had a general idea of how much traffic would be come up our driveway, because we have easement for our farm work out back. And we were just a little concerned about the amount of traffic that would probably go up our driveway. That was really only a question. It wasn't a complaint or anything like that. And that's pretty much if they had an idea on that. So,
Okay.
or, how often or something like that effect. And it's,
So one of the concerns that we've discussed in our ordinance is just making sure that every property has a parking plan and knowing where they would have vehicles parked so that they would not be parked, for example, blocking that road kind of thing. That is some of the things that we've been trying to consider, as our good neighbor policy is just making sure that there aren't issues with.
yeah, it's not parking on our driveway, because I know that would not be a concern. They have their own parking area. It was just use of the driveway. If there was going to be a large amount of traffic or, a general idea, is it going to be weekly, daily, or something of that effect? Weight should not be an issue because I already have farm tractors going
Running on
down
the
the
road.
driveway, so that should not be an issue. It's just, is there going to be a lot of use? That's the only question.
Okay.
You don't know.
It's probably hard to predict.
It's hard to predict if anything. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, couple cars back and forth.
What is the maximum occupancy you're going to list the STR for?
18.
Oh, so it's a larger residence. Okay.
Can, maybe Mike wants to show us the driveway on the map, because it's hard to tell here. That they would be sharing, I'm not quite sure how that works.
Do you know where it is, Mr. Bindle? Driveway?
Largest driveway is right here. Easement, shared driveway.
So it's the first section of the driveway. Yeah, because the red dot is where the proposed short-term rental is, correct? Yeah. So for those of you online, he's pointing to where the 30234 number is. There's a driveway that goes through the trees that connects with that line going towards the red dot in the center of the screen at the 30234. So that's the section under the trees is the shared driveway. Am I summarizing that correctly? Okay. Supervisor Jensis, go ahead.
Okay, I just have another question since it's for 18.
Are you gonna ask about septic capacity?
And also parking, and because it's definitely going to be more than 2 cars.
Right. So do you have a parking plan where you can fit multiple cars?
At least.
There's plenty of parking space. The driveway is about 700 feet.
So even if they were on the
from
driveway?
from the road to the house, and there's plenty of parking on paved and non-paved.
But not in the section where it overlaps with their easement?
No.
Okay. And then I guess this is a question for Mr. Bindle. Is their septic system rated for how many people? Like, do you know at all what that septic system is?
Not offhand.
Okay. So that's one of the things that we're considering is just making sure that the septic that there is meant to handle 18 people on a regular basis. If that house was only built for a family of 5, they may have put a septic in that is only for a family of 5, and that's significantly different. So, although it depends on occupancy, if it's 18 people once a month, then that's different. So we, as you can tell, we have a lot of things that we're working through, and you just happen to come through as we're working through it. So we have a lot of questions that we're trying to kind of figure out. So, all right, committee, what action would you like to take? Should I call the question? Go ahead and vote on it. Right now, the action on the table is a motion to approve. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, you have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the Wilbrant Edelman petition. Sorry, I always see the names with a question mark because I'm always afraid of saying them wrong. Are they, oh, there you are. Okay. All right, Mike, if you would like to give us a brief summary.
The applicant Susan and Brian are selling 5.61 acres to David Alderman to build a house. There's currently a shed there right now. Splitting off the 5.61 acres needs to be rezoned to ag residential.
All right. Someone like to make a motion so we can get this on the table for discussion?
Also move.
I'll second it.
All right, motion by Genta, second by Fleming. All right. Any questions, committee members are you the property owner? Are you?
No, I'm Todd Rumler from Driftless area, so I'm just representing Mr. Edelman. I did the survey
okay.
there, so.
Okay, so if we have any questions on the survey?
Yep.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I noticed the survey's got what they're calling important notes.
Mhm.
And I wondered
Selfies too.
if there was a concern there, or are you just doing that to?
Is that standard operating procedure to have those important notes there, or is this particular to this property?
There's always some important things that people need to be aware of when doing a certified survey map like this. And those important notes wind up on sheet 2.
Mhm.
So that note on sheet 1 that says refer to important notes on sheet 2, that's just to direct the reader to those important notes so they make sure they actually read through those. And the notes that are on there, sometimes they're talking about utility easements. They're talking about how the right of way of the town road was determined there. In this case, the existing driveway has to be upgraded to a residential driveway, and that's not part of my work out there as a surveyor. That's something the landowner has to take care of. So I'm just addressing that in a note in there saying that the landowner has to take care of applying for any town driveway permits that may be needed there, so.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, it's approved.
Thank you.
Great, that brings us to Detweiler petition. It's you? All right. All right, Mr. Bindle, if you'd like to give us background.
The background on this is Mr. Whitweiler is splitting off some land. One lot's going to be 35 acres, and the second lot's going to be less than 35 acres, which is a 24.23 acres that needs to be rezoned.
So you're keeping the 24.23 and selling off the other 35, correct? Okay. All right, would someone like to make a motion to get this on the table? For discussion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Fleming, second by
I'll second.
Carroll. Oh, everybody's jumping on now. All right, anyone have any questions? Seems pretty straightforward. No questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, you have your approval.
Thank you.
You had an easy one. That was pretty straightforward. All right, that brings us to the Aspenson rezone. It says Aspeson, but,
The next
oh,
You're not here. He's out.
oh, he's Addison. Okay, you're not quite yet. We're not ready for you, but that's okay. You can stay right there because is there someone not here for the Aspenson?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay,
I can
and they're
go
not
through it.
required to be here for it? Is that
Right.
correct? Okay,
Well, it's for the town hall, right?
I think so, yeah. This is the town hall one, yeah. Okay, would you like to give background, Mr. Bindle?
So the background on this one is that you can kind of see there is two purple lots and to the north here. These two purple lots, and then this right here is all egg forestry. They're combining this into be one lot of 6 acres or more to be egg residential for a residential lot. And then in this area here, there's gonna be 1.3 acres, basically 1 acre. That's gonna be a commercial lot for the new town hall.
So municipal buildings fall under commercial?
Correct.
I did not know that. All right. All right, would someone like to make a motion?
I also move.
Motion by Gentis.
I'll second it.
Pick who you want, Kathy. All right, so questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So if one portion is going to be commercial, do we not need 2 rezoning requests?
One applicant.
Right, but it only talks about ag forest going to ag residential. Shouldn't there also be a second part going ag forest to commercial?
In the.
The legal description says 2 lots, CSM, 1 lot going commercial or 1 lot commercial, second ag residential. On the first page.
Right, when they fill out the forms, there's only one item to click on, so it's egg residential or commercial.
Oh, you said they can't choose more than one.
Right, so they can't choose multiple things, but on the advertisement, it was for both.
Okay.
So,
Well, I don't want to charge them 500 twice if we can avoid it.
No, I'm just saying that
right.
somewhere there needs to be a record showing that it changed. If this
So when
doesn't
you
really-
file this, you're able to indicate exactly what's happening.
Right, so the ordinance that you go to the county board, it's going to be spelled out with a description of what's going to be
Exactly,
commercial, what's going
which
to
one's
be
going
residential.
So the resolution will spell out all of it
Yes,
that we approve. All right. Yes,
Good. So it's going to be commercial on Highway 60, right?
it's going to be commercial, it's adjoining Highway 60. The entrance to the town hall lot will be coming off Thede Road.
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering. Okay. Because that would be, all right. So obviously, if they don't build, I mean, we're not saying what they're going to do. We're just saying commercial. If they decide not to build there, then it would be a commercial lot out in the country, right?
it would be a commercial lot. Yeah,
And sort of, you know,
right.
Town approved it.
Yeah, we forgot to ask that on the last ones. I'm assuming the town has approved all of these. The towns have approved all of these?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, forgot to ask that question before. All right. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? All right, they have their approval. Where's our current town hall, just out of curiosity?
it's on O, isn't it? Oh,
It's at the junction of, is it double O and
yeah, double
O
O
and
and O.
O?
Oh, okay.
Just up, it's in floodplain and everything else, so an
Oh.
old building
So
that's.
it'd be good to
It's
get it
quaint.
moved out of there. Okay, sounds good. All right. So that brings us to Addison petition. I believe it's you. Oh, what's mine? I don't have an Addison
don't
in my
have it.
folder.
Addison is a continued one from last month.
Oh, so it's still in last month's?
Correct.
Okay. So we need to go into the July folder. Oh, there it is, right there. Oh, this is oh, okay, I know what this is the Chicken Ridge property that we heard from neighbors last time about changing something to from ag forestry to commercial. If you want to go ahead, Mr. Bill, and just give us a brief summary of kind of what the intent is again.
The intent is that Mr. Addison's going to sell approximately 3 acres to someone else to put their excavating equipment and stuff like that on it. So it needs to be, best way would do it was with commercial.
Because it will be a
Rather than
business that's located there. Okay,
He's already keeping stuff there. He's already keeping his stuff there.
okay,
And obviously sooner or later, that's gonna be a problem. So
Right.
It should be cool.
so, well, why don't we get this on the table for discussion? If someone would like
I'll
to
make
make a
that motion.
motion. All right, so we're making a motion to approve, but that does not mean if we vote no, then it would not be approved. So, okay, so I have a motion by Fleming. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so I guess let's talk a little bit about a few of the concerns that we heard last time, just to hear your thoughts on it. So one was just the big equipment going in and out of that driveway as far as the safety of people driving down that road and coming on.
So if you had a picture, it's a straight stretch for a long time.
It
They can
is.
see a long ways. And he's already done a lot of gravel,
So,
strengthened the road.
mhm.
The township did approve it.
Okay, so I will just tell you that I agree with you. There is a good sight distance. But I wanted to drive by to see, so I would have an idea of what we're talking
Yeah.
about. And when I was driving by, there was a giant trailer with a big piece of equipment pulling into that road that's just past there to back up and turn around and come back. And so I had to stop, which is fine. I could see it, but I can see how people might be a little bit concerned. So I don't know if has there been any discussion with the town about just signage saying heavy, equipment coming in and off of the road, just something that might help make that safer.
I'm sure they do it. It's very simple.
Okay, well, it costs
Gary
money.
Gust is our town patrolman and
Okay, because that I think is something that might appease some of the concerns that we heard at the last meeting. Supervisor Gentis?
Oh, so can you put that as a condition on it now to have the signage or, and how about just because I said when we had the sewer, we had to put in trees and things, so it wasn't looking bad having equipment just sitting there. I don't know if we can, we did that with the sewer and we've done that with some other things, so I don't know.
you
What our
need some
authority
pretty
is?
extensive trees to cover dump
know.
trucks.
And, yeah. Well,
He's gonna build a shed up.
and store equipment,
Some of his equipment, obviously, he's
Not-
not gonna
not the
put
big
everything
stuff.
inside.
you'd have to.
Nobody's,
Yeah, you'd have a 3-acre building.
yeah.
Mr. Wendell, I guess this is a question I have for you is what authority do we have here like, do we have the authority to say we would like to see some caution, heavy equipment entering road signs?
To the road that we're discussing.
It's a
is that-
town road,
Okay,
not a
so we
county
have no
road.
authority to put signs up or anything like that.
Mm-mm, don't,
I would say that that limits your authority to make that a condition of the use, but does not completely eliminate the possibility. I would just have to look into it further.
okay. I
How
mean,
far away from the road are the vehicles being parked?
not very far.
No.
They're not too far off the road. I
No,
mean,
but the other thing is, I'm sure he's gonna move it back. He
so
doesn't.
there's an
wanna put- he
existing
doesn't
shed
own it
there.
now.
Yeah, the existing shed that's there, that smaller shed
Yeah,
that's there.
it's gone. actually.
Oh, is it gone now? Because I went before
Yeah,
the last
He's already
meeting.
done a lot,
Oh,
but obviously, he doesn't wanna put a whole bunch of gravel and stuff in and not own it.
right.
He intends to move it back.
Off the
and
road.
make it look
Well,
better.
if he builds a new building it has to be, is it 70 feet off the center or 65 feet off the center of the
Yeah.
road?
70 feet.
70 feet off the center of the road. So we know that because that other building was probably not quite, it was probably built before we had that rule
Yeah,
or
it was
something, because
there.
it was pretty close. It wasn't too far off the road.
But like I say, it's already gone.
Okay.
And as far as getting the sign, the township's very good to work with,
So you feel like that's something that could be pursued,
really.
even if we don't order you to do it, you could
Yeah.
you could
it's-
do
It's
it.
very easy to do.
I mean, I think that was, does anyone else recall any of the other concerns of the neighbors that were here last time? We didn't make any, and we didn't take
didn't
any
realize
action.
I had
Yeah,
to be-
we didn't take any action or anything. We just,
Yeah.
because they were in the room, we just asked them, well, what are your concerns so that we know for when we have you
Yeah.
to talk to. So I don't remember, it was really mostly the big equipment coming in and out of the driveway. Does anyone remember anything else that they brought up?
I think
Okay.
that's all I recall.
Okay. All right.
He
Would it say
has
in their
done a
notes?
lot to protect the road itself with gravel along the edge, because you can break the roads pretty easy.
Yeah,
They're-
I'm
they're
I'm
just
assuming it's
seal
just seal coat. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably maybe a double layer, but maybe even a single layer seal coat. Yeah,
And of course, that's the last thing he wants to do too,
right,
because otherwise he's the one who's got to drive on it all the time.
right. Okay, committee.
Uh,
Are we ready?
I'm just looking at the notes or the minutes from last time, and it said that the neighbors had concerns about parking of equipment blocking the line of sight and affecting the resale value of surrounding parcels.
Yeah, so that we determined that the affecting the resale value, we don't have the authority to say that a business can't. Yeah,
He couldn't block the line of sight.
it
It's
is pretty straight. It's very straight through there.
They
I would
couldn't-
agree with that statement
I
that
mean,
it's
unless he had it out in the road itself,
like, if you got too close to the edge of the road,
Yeah.
maybe,
but he doesn't want his stuff hit either.
right. It's a residential.
I know I'm belaboring this, but since I know in the past the zoning has said that, and maybe trees would be difficult, but there has been ways to camouflage. And we have passed things like that, that they have to do to make sure that it looks good for the neighbors. And if it doesn't, you
So
know,
like putting up a barrier, like a
yeah, something so the
wooden
resale
fence along the
value
road or
isn't,
something?
isn't thought of as being next to a
Are you-
dump or
But
something.
are you allowed to put anything like that in the 70 feet from the center of the road right away? I don't think so. I think you'd get in trouble if you tried to put a privacy fence or, right?
Nothing in the right of way, which is
Which
usually
is-
33 feet from center.
Oh, it's 33 feet from the center? So as long as he was beyond 33 feet
Yeah.
from the center?
Is the concern seeing the equipment or having vision blocked by the equipment?
Both.
Okay. Because
The first thing she said was, yeah, so is a safety thing, and the other thing was just an aesthetics thing. And I was concerned that, you know, trying to tell people what they can and cannot have on their property is overstepping.
So a compromise could be that a condition of the permit would be that the landowner make all reasonable efforts to have any heavy equipment parked X number of feet from the center line of the road. That way, you know, if he knows that he should be parking 35, 70 feet off the road, that means that that equipment is harder to see because it's back
It's
further.
further off the road.
And then you don't need to worry about it blocking line of sight of the road. And then just putting the reasonable efforts in there. It's not a mandate. It's just you know, these are concerns and it's probably going to make your life easier in the long run if you take that extra step. So it's not an order per se. but
Right.
recommendation.
So, yeah, I mean, the interesting part is that you're not actually the business owner. You just want to be able to
And
sell
the
this
other
to
thing
him.
is,
Yeah.
what's sitting there now is actually like some farm equipment that won't be there.
Right,
His stuff, he moves all the time.
right. I mean, he just parks it there when he's
Yeah.
not using it, but yeah. So it may improve as far as not looking like there's just abandoned equipment sitting there or something.
Oh, it's going down.
Huh?
It's going down. It should have went before.
Yeah.
Question for Mike. For the rezone, can you place conditions on a rezone or that can place conditions on a conditional use permit?
Oh, I thought we were talking about a conditional use. permit.
No, we're just
No.
rezoning. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. He's not the owner and he hasn't even sold the property yet. He's just trying to make it commercial so that he can, because he doesn't want to buy it from you unless it can be commercial,
Well,
correct?
he wants it to, and before he even talked about it, he didn't have a place to put his equipment.
Right,
It's a good place for him to drive off the road. It's flat. So I let him put it there, but then the more we thought about it, somebody's gonna complain because it's not zoned
Commercial.
properly.
right.
And when I came in and talked to him, he said, we've already heard about it.
Yeah,
I didn't even know it, but,
right.
so you're trying to get ahead of it.
And, well, you're trying to zone it appropriately, which
Yeah.
is completely reasonable. Okay,
No, I would say you don't have.
so
authority
when
to
this
do that.
person that buys it, they'll have to come to us with a CUP?
No.
No, right? Because I suppose,
We're rezoning it.
because we're rezoning it.
And obviously, he don't want to buy it if it's not commercial.
Right, no,
Yeah.
it makes total sense. It's just making it difficult for us to know what our, I mean, I guess if if we're changing it to be zoned commercial, we can attach strings to it being zoned commercial?
The rezoning, no. If then he applies for a conditional use permit, that
But he
would
wouldn't have to apply for a CUP
be- as long as it's within the normal bounds of the.
of a
Permitted
commercial,
uses.
what's defined as commercial?
Well, it's underneath the permitted uses. If it was a conditional use underneath the commercial, that's when you could have to get the conditional use permit and then put conditions on it.
But for the rezone, all he has to do is meet the requirements of.
Of what this statute or whatever our ordinance describes it, a commercial property as.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
If it was like the short-term rentals, as a conditional use permit, that's when you can put conditions,
Right,
with the trees there, but
right. I don't feel like this is where we can put conditions on this property. I think we're just rezoning it to commercial.
Correct.
And I mean, I think we've talked about this before. We don't, unless we can say that something is like a property is a health hazard to the public, we cannot tell them what they can keep on their property, correct? Like, let's just say there's 1 million abandoned cars and people get mad because it looks bad. The only step we could take is through public health, where we say that it's a health, it's considered a health hazard. That's been my understanding in the past when we've had like falling down houses and things like that.
I could speculate on a number of fact patterns. There are likely remedies to some of the things that could come up, like, for example, a raise order for a dilapidated building. But generally speaking, it is, I think, best practice to stay out of people's property if we can.
So I feel like the township is really the appropriate as far as dealing with the road and signage and if people are want the equipment moved further off the road, would that not be a township because it's a town road issue that they should be talking with them? I just don't want to overstep our authority.
And just the town has already approved this, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they would have the localized knowledge.
Mhm.
I mean, it's the equivalent of the state.
Which town, is this Dayton?
Dayton.
Dayton? Yeah.
And I'm sure I could get a sign.
All right, committee, is there any other questions or do we want to just go ahead and? Did you say something, Julie?
I didn't say anything, no.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. We have 1 voting no. You got that, Kathy? All right, so it has been approved.
All right.
I hope that, just good neighbor policy, I'm assuming you.
Well, I know who it is.
Yeah, and
I
it sounds,
talk to him all the time.
yeah, and it sounds like it sounds like it's something that could be worked out amongst everybody there.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be,
All right,
hopefully.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Back into the right folder. So now we are going to skip down to number 10 because she's a one-man show today in her office and would like to get back to the office, correct? So you'll need a microphone just so the people online can hear.
Is it on? Okay, the Register of Deeds office is currently working with 3 different companies or entities to do our work, our indexing and our scanning of documents and putting them out on the internet. One of the companies we work with is GCS or Catalyst or Dadia or however you pronounce it.
You might need to get closer to the mic.
Oh,
just to
okay.
Make sure the guys online can hear you.
Okay. Anyway, last year, Finance and Personnel approved in my budget $6,000 to take the information out of Dadia and to be able to put it in Fiddler. And I signed a contract so that we could change to Fiddler and everything would be under one company. And that is going to happen in October. So I do have money in my budget to extract the indexing information from GCS into Fiddler. And then I'll also need another like $7,000 to take the images out of Image Tech and transfer over to Fiddler. And I do have that money in my budget because I didn't take insurance this year. So the money is there. And anyway, I just kind of want to make this committee, since you're my committee, aware of what's going on. However, there's going to be like a $7,000 fee to take over the server that the county presently is doing. Now, I talked to Barbara and Jason, and they're all on board for this because they said it's going to cost them money, and it would be much easier for them to just have Fiddler do it all. And so anyway, the Land Records Committee presently gives me 18,000, I mean, not 18,000, 1,800 and, yeah, put my glasses on. $37.50 to put our information out on the internet. I would like it if Land Records would give me an additional $5,162.50 annually to put our information out on the internet.
This is the land information grant that you're,
Well, I
talking
don't
about,
know
or-
if you can take it out of the grant or I mean, our office collects probably between $20,000 and $30,000 a year and puts in the land records fund. And we never, ever really get anything other than the $1,830 back from it. So, I talked to Mike, he was gonna check and see if there was money out there to do this. Otherwise, I guess I'm gonna have to ask for it in my budget. So,
so the action that you're asking us today is, or is this just for information purposes only?
well, it's for information, but I know you're working on the budget, so
Right.
you know,
Have you had this conversation with the county administrator?
I did,
Okay.
yes. But it would be really nice, I think, because I think that's something land information can pay for. And, because there's certain things they can't pay for, but I think that's one of them.
I think getting maps to the public is the primary purpose of the land information grant, is it not?
Right.
That's been my understanding of it, but Mr. Bindle, do you have a?
Right, so one of the, where we're at right now is I have not met with county administrator about the budget process and all that stuff. We were going to meet today, but it's something we need to look at. I mean,
To look at all of the things that we're trying
all
to
the budget issues
use
and-
to pay for the
Right.
land information
All
grant
the
and
right.
see where it all falls. Okay.
And, you know, I don't know if you can give me an answer today, but I just wanted to inform you since you're my committee
Right.
and,
So will this be an ongoing annual cost of $7,000?
7,000 for them to host, or.
So it's a
host
maintenance
the
cost
server.
essentially.
Yeah, well, no, that's in addition to maintenance, but the maintenance I've always budgeted for, that comes out of my budget.
Okay.
But this would be to host the server.
And did Jason and Barb give you any indication of how much money they're currently paying for us to host?
They didn't, they just said that it would be, I wish Barb was here. But, and she said she would talk to you about it, she and Jason, but they're
Okay.
all about doing this.
Well, yeah, it gets it out of their budget and into yours.
Well, I don't even know if they have it in their budget. I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know
But they
how
said
it all
it's
works
gonna
either.
cost them more to do it. Just, I don't know, to keep going, it's gonna cost them more is kind of how I understood. I don't understand all the IT stuff they do.
Right.
But for them to keep going with our images and everything, it's gonna cost them more money. And they think it would be more feasible to do it this way, is kind of what I got from them.
So essentially you need to have $7,000 in your budget yearly. I mean,
Right.
the cost will
right,
go up.
Right.
And your question is, do you just budget that as a line item by itself, or do we designate funds from the land information grant or from your revenues produced in your department? Am I summarizing that
Right,
Pretty
right.
accurately. Okay.
Mhm.
Administrator Pesh, what are your thoughts?
I was gonna say, I think this warrants further review at this point. One of the topics I plan on, I thought our meeting was tomorrow morning. It's on my calendar for tomorrow. So we maybe had a little miscommunication because I do have several questions on the land information grant and how we can use it. If we find we can utilize monies for that purpose, because I agree with you, it was to get information out to the masses. So I think we need to research what we can utilize those grant dollars for. If we can use it for this, then it would be an appropriate use.
Right.
If not, then we can work through the budgeting process to find out how we best support
Okay.
the program going forward.
Okay. So,
I just wanted, it's
No,
kind
I
of
think
an
it's an import- yeah.
FYI and a request at the same
yeah,
time.
I mean, I don't think it would be a bad thing for us, Mike, to understand what we are currently funding with the land information grant money. That would probably be really helpful to know, to maybe help us prioritize,
Mhm.
because I'm sure the money doesn't cover everything we'd like to be doing, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, currently I think we're using that money to pay for our contract services for GIS, since we don't have a GIS person.
There's some very contracted, some is for salaries. I mean, it's broken down around, I mean, we're only getting like around 25,000 that we're assuming is going to come in, because I mean, it's a guess.
Right, right.
So it's, yeah, a lot of money went to pay salaries, and that's what we're trying to get away.
We were getting away from that, right? The last few years, we've really moved away from the salaries being paid from the land information grants,
from. We're working on it.
but it's not quite there. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. I mean, I think anytime we can get a better understanding for where all of our data is sitting and where we need to improve, I think is helpful for this committee. So,
And if you have any questions tomorrow when you're talking it over or whatever, just come in and get me. So, okay.
all right, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Oh, and did you, so that was that, that's also your budget part?
Well, my budget has not gone up for next year. As a matter of fact, it's gone down. And because neither myself or my deputy are taking insurance, so that should help the county out.
So
quite
are
a bit.
you currently removing that from your budget?
I didn't put it in the budget for next year, so.
The only thing that concerns me about when we,
You know, I don't know if somebody else comes in the office.
That's
that
what
could
I-
change,
yeah.
you know,
I-
so I think that's something you always have to keep in the top of your head that, you
yeah,
know, if I have to get a different deputy or when I retire or whatever,
they could take
you know,
insurance and it would blow your entire budget. So yeah, I'm
Right.
always hesitant
yeah.
to say,
mhm.
oh yeah, just cut that, no problem. because
This
my-
this is just a gift for next year,
Yeah.
put it that way.
Okay,
So,
all right, any other
Okay.
questions? All right, well, thank you.
okay, thank you.
All right, so then let's go back to item number 6, RFP received for the GIS contract work.
So the bids are here. I can affirm that they are all sealed.
Okay,
And so typically you as the chair would
I would
open them.
open them.
Just for the record, we are scheduled to meet tomorrow, but for some reason on my calendar, someone sent something that we were supposed to meet. Then it got canceled, and they were like, I'm assuming we're still on for tomorrow, though.
We are.
All right, so I'm opening this one on the top that's from Sanborn and at Geo. Go next. Okay, so I've never done this before, so if someone would like to tell me what I'm exactly supposed to do, I mean, obviously, we've had no chance to look at these, and I don't think we should make a decision based solely on what their number is, right? Their monetary number? There's 3 of them.
This is for the,
GIS contract work that we just put an RFP out for different companies to help us because we have an open position in the GIS.
do you recall the terms that were included in the actual request?
Yeah, we can look at that quick. It said they had to have them here by noon today, paper copy, and that we were going to open them. I don't think it said we were going to make a decision today, did it? I can tell you the exact language. Hold on. It was our 18. So it said in the cover letter, one original proposal signed and inked by an authorized representative must be received at the address above by 3 p.m. All proposals must be submitted in a sealed envelope, clearly labeled GIS mapping, and must bear the name of the firm and the contact person. Late proposals will not be considered. Soliciting proposals from qualified persons or company for the continued development or enhancement of existing GIS mapping.
This is not a public work.
No.
It's a technical
Nope,
service,
it's a
so
service,
it's
yep.
however the
Okay.
committee decides.
All right. So
That would be the same.
maybe, yeah, they gave us 3 copies. Oh, yeah, they were supposed to give us 3 copies, I think, or some such thing. I was just looking to see if they actually like say upfront, we're
Can you
proposing
give us
this
the
much
name
money.
of it?
Yeah. Pricing information, page 27. I mean, we'll start there and then, because I mean, obviously, we're going to need to go through these in detail. And I think that honestly, I don't think this committee is necessarily the best group to evaluate. I think it should be our MIS techs and the people that are involved, and Mike, obviously, and that are involved in the 27. Oh. Just out of curiosity, though, I'm looking at, so this is is this California based? Boston, they are located in Boston. And they are proposing,
What's their name?
it's Sanborn App Geo, SANBORN plus APPGEO. Move forward. Almost there. 27, here we go. This is what it says is there. Okay, so the grand total, providing all of the things in the RFP is $55,483 per year.
What was it?
$55,483. Okay, so that's that one.
Madam Chair, just reading through the rest of the RFP, it does specifically say that this committee will make its selection based on what it judges to be the best interest of the county. So you'll have
Okay.
wide discretion.
So I can have people who really understand GIS look at these proposals and then give us a recommendation that we can then discuss.
Yes.
Okay, in a public forum. It's like a process. That's how I've never been on highway. I bet highway does this all the time. Where they open up bids and stuff. All right, so here's one from MSA. Also a pretty binder, but much more concise. Let's see. So this one I'm assuming is not going to be that much different than, let's see. Sorry, just looking to see if I can figure out where the actual price is. Scope of services, here we go. All right, so they have actually broken it down by how many hours they will spend on each kind of thing, with a grand total of $34,170 for what they consider to be what we requested in the RFP. And then they have actually also given us a list of optional tasks that they thought we might be interested in that are just itemized. So I guess I would put in $34,170 is the MSA. It's interesting. Right. And then Oscar goes to, all right. This one is from SAM Survey and Mapping LLC out of Maryland, Missouri, or Maryville, Missouri. This one. Pricing, 18. Okay, so theirs does not give a grant. Okay, so I'm just going to read what it says here because I don't know how to. It says provide updates, additions to addressing CSM center lines, legal descriptive corrections, parcel splits, plat maps, plat of surveys, and zoning updates, $25,000. And then it goes on to say weekly updates of splits, survey point, linking of data, monument markers, and data migration, $7,500. Work with Crossroads to import NG 911 NENA standard cleanup data is $1,500. Clean up and eliminate redundant layers, $2,500. Provide a detailed proposal to transition GIS data to a hosted or cloud-based application. It says $7,500 website deployment, $8,400 GIS website maintenance per year. So I don't know if we want to just, I guess I don't know what's put for the total because I don't know for sure. I think these were all specific things from the RFP, which means we would add them all up in order to get the grand total. Yeah, so I think we should add all those. So if I don't have a calculator on me. All right, so 25,000 plus 7,500 plus 1,500 plus 2,500 plus 7,500. Well, do you want to get into the yearly maintenance? No, right? Yeah, so 7,500, so that would be it then.
That's $44,000.
Exactly. Oh, look at that. $44,000 put down for that, for the official. Okay. All right, so committee, do we agree that we would like to have the members of our staff that are involved with this look at these RFPs and come back to the committee with a recommendation as to what they?
It's only 3 weeks.
Right, so we have an early meeting because of the September. Yes, sir.
This is the right time to comment or not. As county surveyor, I can make a comment on at least the state.
Right. So I think it might be more appropriate to have those kind of comments when we're actually discussing which one we're going to choose, which we are not doing right now. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind either conveying communicate to the committee and then I can read it publicly into the record if you'd like. Or you can come to the meeting if you have time, or you can always join remotely too. So, okay. All right. So do we need a motion to do that or what would be the?
Not particularly,
No?
just
Okay.
affirmatively directing
I'm
staff.
saying that I will hand these off to them. Okay. All right. So that's done. All right. So that brings us to item number 7, discussion and possible action of fee change for municipal application for fire numbers for public spaces. So as you should have seen in our folder, she was really great at sending out communications to all of the townships and municipalities. This is in our packet and it's on the thing, so I don't know if I need to read it all, but it looks like there are 8 total fire numbers from townships that would like to know the cost of. I wonder if that 8 includes the original one that was asking, which I can't remember which township. Oh, Bloom. He was from Bloom Township. That was the reason that we're discussing this, is Bloom Township also has, does anyone remember how many he said he had? Was it 2 or 3? Yeah. So let's just say we're probably talking about 10-ish sites.
Do we know if we've heard back from any more of the townships? Because obviously there's 4 that they're not interested in it. And then of course there's 3 now that are interested in getting it. But what about the other ones that did not initially get back to her?
Right.
The date of the email is August 1st. So.
Yeah, Julie was gonna let me know if something else came in.
Okay, so nothing else has come in then. So.
Okay.
And I will say from my experience in contacting all of our towns that this is about the response level I got to as far as who responded back. When we were talking about STRs, I got responses from like a third. She actually got more responses than I did. So,
And I will say, like, land conservation for Ash Creek, we paid for a sign at Ash Creek, address sign, and the Parks is paying for one. They paid for one, or they were paying for one at Rockbridge.
and you're
Park.
paying the $100?
Mhm.
$100? So the county is charging itself $100 for the sign?
Yep.
Still makes sense. All right, so I guess, so just to remind everyone where we are on this, there was a question as to could we give the municipalities a reduced rate for signing their public spaces in their townships? Cemeteries was what came up, but we also, I think most of the parks actually do have a fire number, if not all of the parks. So mostly it would be, I can't think of anything else other than a cemetery. That's a public space that wouldn't have a fire number. So,
Town hall.
oh, that's true. But then all the town halls have fire numbers because they get mail, don't they?
I don't know.
That's a good question.
They have septic systems, so it's
So
required.
there has to have a fire number. Okay. All right. So I guess I'd like to hear from the community. What are your thoughts? What would we like to do? I mean, I guess I'll start if I'd say that we certainly should recover our cost. And she did bring up a good point that the cost of the sign is $30, but we also have to consider time in the zoning office to take care of it. So maybe we add a little bit to it for administrative fees for filing all of the appropriate paperwork for a fire number.
Just so today we ran the numbers. So the last time we ordered the white blades, it's $29.03 for each. And then when you put the 10 numbers on, that's $4.20. So it's 33
So
23 cents. So I mean,
so the cost of this physical sign is 33 cents, or $33, sorry. Would you guys you guys were both looking at it, like you want, Mr. Carroll, go ahead.
Sure. To me, the labor and time to put up a sign is significant. I
Would
think,
the townships be doing their own labor though to put them up? Yeah,
oh,
the
I did-
property owners would do that.
sorry, I didn't
Yep.
catch that.
It would just be Mike's time to go research, figure out what point it is, what the address would be.
Because then that information gets entered into our GIS and 911 and all of that. So there is definitely work involved in getting a fire number, which is what we've been talking about for months here with this RFP is how does it all happen and who all has to put their hands on it? So I guess to me, I would say, I think $35 a sign. We should be able to recoup some of, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know what the reasonable, I'm sure that's why we charge 100 because it does take time.
Why not just do it at 50% off? So $100 is what it normally is and do it for 50. So that way we're recouping the cost of the sign, but at least also adding on a little more for the labor part.
That's not it. Mr. Carroll, go ahead.
These aren't required, right? These are just something some of the townships would like,
They feel that they're important for public safety.
right? But they're not required.
I don't know if they're required. Like who is required to have I mean, I think, is anyone actually required or is it just if you really want 911 to be able to find you, you should have it?
well, it's required if you have a sanitation or it's a residence or something like that. If it's just a shed out there, it's not required. A lot of people just want them in case they have an accident or.
They want 911 to be able to find them, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's really more about emergency services being able to find you.
And that's why we put one out at Ash Creek.
Right, because someone could legitimately get hurt.
We have nothing out there except trails and stuff, so.
Yeah, yeah. At least there's a
You
map
paid
there
the
now.
$100.
And we paid the $100.
So. go
I
ahead,
guess
Mr. Carroll.
my opinion is let's leave it $100.
Does anyone want to make a motion to that effect and we'll just see, or would someone like? I mean, so right now we have two suggestions out there. We could do a discount of half off, or we could leave it the same. I mean, I always feel like, I mean, everybody's hurting, but I feel like the townships are
Well, they
the
just
least
got-
supportive. The townships feel least supported in, by the state. And I guess I am always sort of the feeling that if there's anything we can do as a county to help them.
I don't know what the financial state is. I only knew Buena Vista and they were in very good financial state. So I don't know about the rest of the townships.
Sorry.
That's it.
I'm sorry, repeat what you said?
Oh, I only know the financial aspect of Buena Vista, but maybe because they don't have many roads and they have a lot of people, they're in very good financial state. I don't know.
Oh, that is not the case. with
That's what I don't know
Lincoln
about
or
the other
Richwood
townships.
Or Sylvan.
I know that
Yeah.
they're getting some money from the state now,
Well,
but
they
that,
certainly do, and
Yeah.
they are certainly getting, but it
I
just
don't
feels
know.
like that.
So the others are in trouble because they have so many roads probably.
Yeah, I mean, I go to Richwood and
Yeah.
occasionally Aiken town meetings, and that, I've never heard them say, oh, we have too much money. So that's just just because I go to their meetings.
Yeah, well, that's
just
why
feel
I
like-
go to the one that was,
Yeah,
and it's known, I guess, because it has so few roads and so many people.
right.
So Mike, do you have an opinion?
My comment is 2 words, budget time.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always talking about raising fees up and all that. And then we're turning around saying, well, we're gonna waive.
Make an
these
exemption
fees
for
and-
this particular.
I mean, we have 80 people out there doing Airbnbs, and we're gonna waive the fees for them. I mean, there's a significant amount of money going.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I would move that we leave the fee at $100 for the townships.
do I have a second?
Does that even require an action?
No, I guess that's true. It's already $100. I know, well, I was just trying to get an understanding of what we want to do. I suppose that's true. It doesn't require a motion if we're not changing anything
But I mean, it doesn't hurt either. It
to
clarifies the
really
issue.
basically just say to the towns, we're not giving you a discount. All right, so I guess I would like us to make a statement to the,
Second.
okay, so second by Gentis. Any other discussion? All those
I
in
would,
favor?
Madam, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Madam Chair, that, the sentiment that, the towns don't have a huge amount of money laying around, neither does the county. You're just transferring it from one taxpayer to a broader base of taxpayers. It's still taxpayers paying the money.
That's true. All right, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay, I'm opposed. All right, motion passes. Okay, so that brings us to item number 8 and 9 are together. I feel like they're connected. So I'm not sure who would like to give us an update as to what's happening with staffing in the zoning office. Would that be Mike? Do you want to start or update us on changes?
I have Cheryl Dole back in the office. So she is filling in, and it's nice because I don't have to train anyone. She does have her pouch and all that stuff that we were looking for. So,
And to clarify, she applied for one of the positions in your office.
right, she
correct?
applied for the assistant zoning administrator sanitation position. The office system tech position, I think, is still up on hold, kind of, because we've never created that job to combine them and all that stuff. We never advertised when we left off the advertisement part of it. We were looking at the temp, and it was almost going to be a lot more money going through the temp agency. There's another 7% added on top of that, the cost and all that. So we never really got the feet down going on it. So then we were trying to combine the 2 positions and all that.
Right.
So
And how's it going having Cheryl in your office?
it's going pretty good. I mean, I'm catching up real quick. I mean, she's down there entering pumping report checks and all that stuff right now because we have 8 more days before deadline date. And I know that we had 250 come in last week, and we got another 100 that came in just before the meeting. So last minute.
This is for those when you get the little thing saying, clean out your septic before this date or you get, or
Right.
doubles.
That's the one that you want to raise up from $25 to $50.
We talked about doing, but we haven't actually implemented that, correct?
We have implemented because we have to do that for 2024. We didn't know for sure we're going to do that, raising fees, because it'd be a guaranteed $50,000.
Right. I remember.
So did I understand, we put out the position again and you have an applicant? Is that what we're, or do you have
Cheryl
more?
Dull applied for the,
Uh-huh. And
job.
did anyone else apply?
No,
Okay, and
That's
when
the
are,
position that's been open for a long time.
I
that we-
know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're combining them, right?
No,
No, that's a separate position.
That's
this is the
sep-
Pouts position that we were
We
trying
applied
to
for number
fill.
8 and we don't, the one that was supposed to go to county board.
Oh, yeah,
That you
so
guys-
this is the
it
one
didn't-
where we didn't have
We
anybody
couldn't
that
get
was
any,
trained.
we weren't getting applicants that had the Pouts certification was where we were.
Yeah, so
struggling.
how are we in the hiring process for that?
The Pouts position?
No, this sanitary, that you
That's
have
one-
somebody applying for.
That's where we hired Cheryl for.
Cheryl.
I know you, but have you hired her? You
Yeah.
didn't say that.
Oh, yeah, he said she started in his office last.
Well, they said that she was gonna work there part-time. I thought you were talking about the same thing.
No, she actually officially applied for the position.
Okay, but I
Is
never
no
heard-
longer the assistant to the county administrator.
Okay, I
and-
didn't, we don't
Oh.
know that.
Yeah.
I wasn't clear on that either. I don't,
Oh,
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
okay, yeah, so she's no longer the assistant to the administrator. She has applied for the Pouts, the
And
sanitation
who
position.
decides that, do we have to vote on that or?
We do not, in this committee is not the interview, part of the interview process. That's between the county administrator and the, correct?
Yes, typically a candidate is interviewed by the county administrator and the department head.
Okay, and then the committee doesn't approve it or? No, okay, I didn't know how that is working because that's changed. Okay,
It's changed since we went
Okay,
to the
that's
county
fine.
administrator for.
I'm
full
happy.
government.
It's just that we didn't know that was.
Right, so there's still the question, so if you remember last month, we went over the job description that
Yeah.
combined Tammy's position
Yes,
with, an administrative assistant type of position for zoning as well. So it's essentially a full-time position that covers both offices. That did not, because of Cheryl going down to the zoning happened right before our last meeting, so that did not they pulled that job description until we can, now that Cheryl's in the office, figure out how we want to structure that office, now that we have a Pouts person.
well, that's good for your office.
Yeah, so as a department head, that's when you guys would be interviewing most likely a couple full candidates or supervisors for a department head,
Well,
not so much the person below them.
correct, and typically, it's actually, our county administrator is the primary supervisor of all department heads, at least the two department heads in this room. So we might be involved, but we actually, by statute, that's really her purview. She can ask for our opinions, but she doesn't have to, right? Am I?
You're correct,
Yeah.
but typically, in my experience with hiring a department head level position, I like to assemble a committee that usually consists of one or two supervisors, an expert from another county, and then myself. And that's because you get that technical knowledge from someone that is an unbiased outsider that will give you an unbiased opinion on the best candidate for the position. So that's typically how I would handle it.
Right, so I guess, Administrator, one of the things that we had been tasked as a committee with was looking at the structure of zoning and land conservation. I mean, they're physically located together, and the committee is together, but technically they are two separate departments. And so we had in the strategic plan been tasked with evaluating that and how we do or don't want to do that and move forward with the combination. So, but I think that I guess we'd like to know how you think, like, do you want it to still stay within our committee, or is that something that you want to work on with the departments and come forward with a recommendation, or you want us to do that and make a recommendation to you? Like, how would you like us to move forward with?
Madam Chair, I believe we've deviated from agenda items.
Well, have we, because the reorganization is the positions, like whether or not we have these positions would be the reorganization of like, for example, item number 9, we need to know what the structure of the departments are going to be in order to know if we want that position. So that's where I was coming from in my mind. But if I'm wrong, that's fine. I'll stop. We can agenda it differently next time.
I would be more comfortable re-agenda.
Okay, because we can tie it into our strategic plan instructions, which are talking about the reorganization. So I don't know if the committee members would like to just think about, what do we think makes the most sense now that they're physically co-located, they have the same committee. what makes the most sense. On the other hand, Tammy's retiring November.
So maybe December now, but it's either November 1st or December 1st.
Okay, so it's coming up. It's not too far away. And so that will leave a full-time vacancy, which we were going to fill with a half-time position. So I think what I'd like to know from you, Mike, for next month would be, am I off topic still, or can I say?
No, directing staff in this context. would
Okay.
be-
Thank you. It's nice having you here because I'm always worried that it would be nice if you could let us know like how it's working, like what holes is Cheryl filling and what holes, like if you look at that new position description in item number 9, the items that you have in there, is Cheryl filling any of those holes? Or is it completely separate and, how we would move forward?
The way I want to put it is that with Cheryl down there, she knows all the sanitation, all the data entry. She can answer questions. Someone calls in and has a question about what they need for a billing permit.
Right,
mean,
she
can
already
go
has
on and all that
knowledge.
stuff. If it was just a system office technician, it kind of could be like an answering machine. I mean, it's nice to have someone that's there that
Taking messages.
answering the questions rather than just saying, here's his answering.
Right. So I guess our question for you for next time is going to be, do we need one more body in that office? Like I guess what I would like to know is, do we need another position, or how with the two, would Cheryl have any capacity to take on answering phones and doing things for the Land Conservation Department? Or do we need this next full-time position that combines the two? And Kathy, you too would have to think about, is there something that Kent can be taking over, or Derek that, and I mean, I'll be honest, I think the answer is yes. I think we probably do need that combined position, but I don't know until we really talk about what duties could potentially be allocated other places. Is that?
Well, I think one comment that we can both agree on is that we have a busy season. I mean, there's a time of year that we're just running around like crazy. I mean, right now
You're out of the office.
I'm trying to be out of the office as much as I can do for inspections, but I mean, it's speeding ticket type of stuff and try and get from one place to another. And I mean, after this meeting, I gotta go back downstairs and get stuff ready for county board for Derek, because Derek's not gonna be here next half a day. And so I mean,
Right.
it's always being pushed. I mean, it's like deadline time is where we're at right now.
So I guess, Administrator Pesh, I mean, in my mind, I feel like we do need to make a decision sooner rather than later, because we will have Tammy's position vacant and not being able to provide. I mean, I guess we can start having her kind of write up all of the million different things that she's done for 30 years, and making sure that there's ability to pass on that information. But we need to start thinking about whether we should fill that position before she leaves, so that there'd be continuity of operations there, or not.
I would agree. And actually, I have started, after conversations that we've had, just kind of looking into structures and, how other counties are handling these types of offices and how many staff they have. And so I can continue to do that, and hopefully by next meeting as well, have some recommendations for you.
Okay, we're meeting in 3 weeks because it's the Monday is Labor Day, so we have to push the meeting up.
Sure. And that way, by that time, Kathy and Mike should have a good listing.
Good deal, okay.
And I can have some options as well, and then we can formally decide if we move forward.
Okay, that sounds good. So let's plan on spending a little bit of time kind of hashing this out so we can make a decision one way or the other and move forward in whichever way we deem appropriate. Okay. All right. So then we already did 10. So that brings us to the cost share contract. Hilby and Schweitzer.
Okay.
Go to Hilby first.
Sure. This would be, I forgot to write it down. It's 4 on here.
They're both water crossings, are they not?
Yeah.
Or stream bank protection, I mean?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, stream bank protection. I'm
Yeah.
looking at the wrong spot on here. Sorry. So, Gene Hilby is, for a crossing, and it's the total cost is $8,440. And the cost share, because of the location of it, it's only 50, oh, I looked at the wrong one. This is Schweitzer, sorry. Wrong one. Okay, Hilby's is $9,800, and he's eligible for 70% cost sharing from the state. So his amount, the cost share amount would be $6,860.
And how are we doing with the amount we have left in our coffers for the cost share?
I haven't checked lately. We're still okay, and he's working on signing more contracts, so he signed.
So hopefully we'll use all of our funds this year. That'd be awesome. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Schweitzer, his total cost is $8,440. He's only eligible for 50% because it's not associated with directly with ag land. I mean, it's on agricultural property, but it's not for agricultural purposes.
Great.
So we can do it for erosion.
So instead of the 70-30, it's 50-50.
50-50. So
Right.
he has, and so the total is $4,220.
And both of these are to protect the stream from erosion, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. All right, so I think we need to do them individually. So if someone would like to make a motion to approve the Hilby cost share
So
contract. Motion by Turk. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll
Second by
second.
Carol. Okay, any questions on this? So I don't know if the committee remembers, this is cost sharing. This is, we get money from DATCAP every year to do these projects to help with conservation in the county. DATCAP money pays 70, the landowner pays 30. Landowners, there's expectations, right in here, you can see in the contract, there's expectations of what they have to do and what we have to do. So, all right. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so now let's go. So that would be the Schweitzer would be the second one. Again, it's same thing, stream bank, cost sharing. I would entertain a motion.
Also move.
Motion by Gentis,
I'll second it.
second by Fleming. Any questions on this one? So this is the 50-50 one, correct? Yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, you have their approval. So is Derek, how close is Derek to being, I'm assuming he still has someone overseeing all of his
It'll
projects?
be a long time before,
Wow,
you have
yeah.
to read certain job approvals, you have to do so many jobs at that before.
So it's good that we're getting the jobs under his belt, because every job he does, he's that much
Right.
closer to getting certified
Correct.
to be able to do them on his own.
Yeah.
And DATCAP is providing
Yes.
the backup? Okay. Or the co-signing or whatever, oversight? Okay. So both of you wait. I don't know who to make. I think the lighting assessment will be quicker. Do you mind if we wait? Okay. So if you all recall, so we're going to skip to item 13. Sorry. I was just trying to decide who would make wait longer later. All right, so this is the Dark Skies Initiative. So as you may recall, several months ago, we asked Scott to go through and evaluate the county as a whole as to how many outdoor light fixtures we have and how good or bad they are. Is that pretty much in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
And he has been kind enough to provide us with a really nice
Oh,
report. So if you just want to kind of summarize your thoughts, how the process went, what your biggest concerns are, however you want to go about.
Sure. Well, first of all, I apologize for the delay in getting this to you because I have overcommitted myself in many areas, not just in dark sky right now. So that's the first thing I will say.
We completely understand.
What's that?
We totally understand overcommitting.
Big job you did.
With the assistance of John Heasley, by the way. So John came out and helped me with the courthouse and the campus sites especially. I think, to summarize for you, I have a couple more sites, 3 sites left to visit, which I will do for you yet. There's a lot of additional data that I could add into this report, but it would require me to open fixtures and get on ladders and that kind of thing. So I think I'm not unwilling to do that work, but it won't happen anytime soon. I think the summary is that there are lots of opportunities to save the county money in terms of energy use, at the same time improving public safety by reducing glare from a lot of these fixtures, especially the ones I mentioned down here in the parking lot, right here outside this
this building and also at the campus site. Those are two real big areas for improvement in terms of glare, which also have a huge impact on the dark sky, which is what initiated all this discussion.
Right.
As well as having energy savings, because the theme of all this is that if you use dark sky fixtures, a rough approximation is you can cut the number of lumens, the amount of light coming out of the fixture, in half. That's just a rough approximation. And so if you switch any of these to LEDs, or even if you switch existing LED fixtures when they reach the end of life, from an unshielded fixture to a full cutoff fixture, you'll save half the energy, right? You can really have that impact. So I put in the report, the priority ones, if I were going to pick, and it's really true of anything. I guess the message I want to say is, before anybody who works for the county buys an outdoor light fixture, if you refer to this report, you'll end up with a better result overall in terms of functionality, in terms of energy savings, all those things. And that's really the key takeaway. And right. I can provide you with that same kind of information for the remaining 3 sites. That's the key takeaway, I would say, at this point.
So if you were going to pick 1 or 2 things so you're saying the lights around this building and over there would be like your top, those, if we could do 1 or 2 things, like if we had a wish list of,
yeah,
we could do 1 or 2 things.
And really, when you say the lights around this building, it's really just those parking lot lights. The rest of the lights in this building are more or less full cutoff fixtures. Now, whether or not they provide you with the light you want, that's not for me to say, really. But as far as being dark sky compliant or being full cutoff fixtures, they're doing a good job. It's really just these gooseneck, I call them gooseneck, completely unshielded globes, that if you come here at night, you'll see they're blinding, right? That's the picture, right? Exactly. So so much of that light is unnecessary. So that'd be the number 1 priority. Number 2 priority would be the similar type of fixtures that are out at the campus site, which is those 7-foot poles that have the cylinders on, also picture in there. Those would be the top 2 priorities, I would say, for you in terms of addressing all the things I just mentioned. There are lots of opportunities out at the fairgrounds, but not knowing how that operates, my assumption is that's only operating during the fair or other special events. Is that accurate? Other special events. So that one wasn't as big a concern for me, even though there's lots of unshielded lights out there, lots of chances to improve, the quality of the light and reduce glare and all those things. I would look at it from the county's perspective as which lights are burning the most hours per year and where are they burning? Like right here at the courthouse, public safety stuff. That'd be my number 1 priority.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for him?
You mentioned the ambulance had a new pole that was a really bad one, right? Did I read that?
I'm not sure it's a new pole. I'm not sure what happened there, but there a lot of renovations were done there, obviously, but there's a pole right next to the building with a streetlight head on it. And it's, because that light distribution pattern, a lot of that light's, it's going over the roof, right? Yeah. So it's obviously a complete waste of light. The ones that I think were new, for sure, I would think would be those sconces that are in the front of those garage doors. And again, hopefully had this report been issued before those light fixtures are purchased,
They might have chosen
different fixtures.
Okay. Did you have a question, Mr. McGuire?
Yeah, I had a question. This is kind of a loaded question, but
Go for it.
one of the things that brought up in the IDA, which is the International Dark Sky Association.
Yep.
It says lighting pollution robs us of our heritage. Okay, and it says our ancestors experienced a night sky that inspired science, religion, philosophy, art, and literature. Now millions of children across the globe will never know the wonder of the Milky Way. Can you explain that a little bit? That's a heavy duty question. I realize, but maybe you can just touch on that a little bit.
I can try. I mean, I don't represent the IDA, right? I'm not a representative. I'm not a member even of the Dark Sky Association. I was years ago, but I'm currently not. I think what they're getting at there is that, if you think about how many thousands of generations of humans have existed, and what their view of night was, and how different that is just in the last 100 years, right? So I think that's the heritage is probably, I'm assuming that's the heritage they're referring to, is that for all these thousands of years, human beings at night saw something different than what most human beings today see. So unless you live like where my wife and I live, and we go out for a walk at night, we can still see the Milky Way where we live, right next to Wildcat Mountain State Park. If you walk out here at night, you aren't going to see the Milky Way. And I think that's probably what they're saying, is that change. But that really isn't, honestly, that really isn't my focus on the lighting changes I'm suggesting in here. What I've come to realize, even though that's where I started, was dark sky and seeing stars. What I've come to realize is the transition to LED lights. The biggest problem is really the glare created by these really bad lighting installations. So, yeah, that's really my focus now. I would tell you is the opportunity for more energy savings than you're already getting, and the huge problem that glare is causing with LED fixtures these days.
Okay, thank you.
So my question for the committee is, how can we utilize this information to make sure that when someone is buying a new light fixture, or, you know, like I don't know how to go about getting this information where it needs to go. Do we send it to Public Works? Do we send it to Administrator Pesh and you disseminate it to departments as far as when we're purchasing these things? You need to think, these are the things to think about. What makes the most sense? Sending it to you makes the most sense? She's nodding.
I would agree that, yeah, routing it through administration, and then when we undertake projects like this, I mean, I would automatically disseminate it to Randy and to Josh, because they're doing those types of things. I think, you know, when we're looking at lighting our parks, when we're looking at anything that we're doing with the campus, I mean, I think this is something, yes, that we need to consider, you know, as we go.
I mean, one of the things I was thinking is that as a committee, we could make a recommendation saying that we would like to see this implemented in the county. However, we have to go about doing that, whether, like with what you suggested, we could send it to you. I mean, I think I'd like to see us make some kind of official statement that we think this is important, and that he went through this process for a reason, not just to tell us, but so that we could actually take action. So go ahead, Supervisor.
I agree with you. I think we need to have something formal out of this, because originally we were going to have a brochure for people who came in for lighting
We
things.
still intend to do that.
And we said, oh, we cannot tell other people what they should do if a county isn't doing it themselves. And so I think we need to figure out a way to make sure that we are making that statement. And since we've done this, I don't know what we need a motion or what we need to do to follow up on this.
Go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe the way to go about this is, you know, we have a long-term capital improvement budget.
That's what I was just going to say.
And could just be one more added line in there that doesn't necessarily say when it'll happen, but at least we've got it on the list.
Mhm.
And as we're able, we can start chipping away at it.
And you didn't, I was just looking at the table that you provided, or the Richland County lighting inventory. You did not make a statement as to, like, this is the highest priority that should be replaced, you know, kind of down to these are all great, you don't need to do anything kind of thing.
Not in that table. I could do that for you. That would be a relatively small investment of time to do that. Yes, I could do that for you.
I mean, that would streamline things as far as being able to add it to our capital improvement plan. We could say, okay, these are the top 3, and then we could find out how much it would cost to fix that, and then we could potentially try to incorporate it into our capital improvement plan. Because if we don't do that, it's probably, you know, unless it just happens that one breaks and we need to change it, well, then at that point, I want to make sure for sure we're looking at this document. But it would be nice to be more proactive than just waiting for something to break or change. So,
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
McGuire. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Turk.
I was just going to say, while I think this is entirely worthwhile, I think it's stretching the authority of this committee, and I think routing it through administration and, you know, through the committees who are responsible for properties is probably the way to go. It's great information, and more information would be awesome. And, you know, getting it into Randy's hands so that if things change at the courthouse facility or across the street at Health and Human Services, that some of these things could be implemented, I think it'd be wonderful.
I'm going to disagree slightly and just say that I think we have the authority to recognize a priority that we think should be included in the capital improvement plan. Doesn't mean it's going to be, but because that's the administrator's job to figure out where things all fall priority wise. But I do think we have the authority to make our intent known.
So there's the discussion of the action on the table. Another thing that I was thinking of is an advisory resolution directing all county employees and agencies to take all reasonable steps to comply with recommendations of the dark sky report in executing whatever duties may be relevant to it. So that would not necessarily bind any county employees, but that would direct them to at least think about this before. So if in the situation you described, the light bulb burns out before we buy a replacement, we'd need to consider the recommendations in this report. But if we have 50 bulbs in our closet already for that, it doesn't prevent us from using what we already have.
Right. I mean, I do think that administration that, you know, you could decide how to disseminate this out. But I don't want to overstep what you know, your authority and what you're doing with the departments. But I also want to, or I'm thinking that it would be good to have our intent clearly stated. And a resolution, I mean, a resolution would have to come through a committee. So, because you can't create a resolution, the administrator can't create a resolution. So did the rest of the committee, do you agree with Mr. Turk that we should just give it to administration and let it go where it goes? Or do we want to make any kind of recommendation as to how we would like to see it go?
If you're looking to set a policy, that is appropriately a board action. And
I mean, if
incorporating this into our thought process, I believe would be a policy.
policy,
Well, so I agree that we should work on a resolution to put for the board, and then they can decide if it goes into capital improvement or how they handle it.
well, if nothing else, I'd like everyone to read this. report,
Exactly. I mean,
including department heads.
and if
Yeah.
we're going to put out a brochure, I think we do show that we're doing a good job in our county as well as advocating for people who are coming to us.
Well, and I think when we started this discussion, a lot of it was about educating both
Yes.
ourselves and the
Yes.
public about the issue. And then it went even further into, well, how good are we doing as a county? We don't even know like how bad or how good our lighting is. So,
Let me just say, this is just a draft. So
Right.
I can give you a version if you're going to distribute it. I'd prefer, as the author, I'd prefer that I have a chance to do
of course,
additional work
of course.
before you distribute.
I mean, I'm thinking that we can have further discussion next month to kind of work out more details, and you would have a chance then to finish
Maybe that should be,
the
I'm sorry.
October meeting.
yeah.
Yeah, should be the October meeting, because the
Well-
next meeting is only 3 weeks away.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
in
that's
order,
the month.
in order to encompass the last 3 sites and do any additional tweaking to this, that'd be nice to have that additional time.
Okay. The only note I will make is that I will not be here in October.
Oh,
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Boyle.
because we are part of the county board, if we thought about doing a study here, not only for the city of Richland Center, but all of our communities, Lone Rock, Biola, Cass. I mean, on what is the status of their present lighting and our present lighting right here in Richland Center too. It's just some sort of a study. We have to find out where we're at before we can make.
That's what we're
make a
talking
solution.
about, is the report that he did that.
I know it, but I mean, have we done that?
Yes, that's what this
It
report
has
is.
been done.
It's,
Madam Chair,
yeah,
I think what he's referring, I mean, this was just for county facilities.
county facilities only, correct.
Right. There's hundreds of other structures with lights that we have not been surveyed. That's what you're driving at, right? But
But
this report was done gratis. Thank you.
that's what I'm about to say
But-
is,
but-
we can't, yeah.
We don't have any resources to do an entire survey of the county. I don't know how we would do that.
Madam
Right.
Chair,
Yes,
I would also caution, and this is a very wonderful idea, and I actually have seen the difference in a previous position. We switched out all of our light fixtures. We became much more energy efficient. All of those things are wonderful, but we have a cost
Of course.
limit here. And so, that's where I would just caution on any mandate to do things, because I think it would, I think that it may be cost prohibitive and we may not have the resources, or we may have to make those decisions on a case by case basis. But I think getting the information out and informing our staff that this is a goal that we have, and then discussing how to work it into the capital improvement plan where appropriate, I think that is a wonderful way to proceed.
agree.
So does that mean that we simply make a motion instructing you to take this document and distribute it as you see fit? And
well, I would suggest if he would like more time to finish the document and then maybe prioritize, that would assist us in how we wanted to incorporate it into. So I think that we could revisit that discussion in October when we have all the data, and then decide how to move from there.
Okay. Do we want to move it to November? Or I will not be here in October. Just, that's fine. But I mean, I would kind of like to be here for the discussion.
That's
but,
okay. I mean, you can call in from Hawaii. I don't know.
No, I'm going to be in Scotland. Be out of it. I will not be talking to you. All right. So, I mean, I guess we'll make it, it'll either be October. Well, I guess it's up to the committee. Would you like to hear it in October?
I just want to say something, because the capital improvement plan will be done in October, right?
This, for 2024, it's already done, correct? That was what John brought through a couple months ago.
So we're
talking about
we're working on
2025.
that next year, so November would be fine, is what I was just trying to.
Yes. Okay, so does November seem more reasonable? The second Monday of November?
That's better for me. Yes, that's,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, good.
Yeah. I have the same thing, report to prepare for Vernon County now. I've done this draft, so I'm using this as a template for Vernon County. I've already done the inventory there as well, but that inventory I think is complete, so.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. I mean, the fact that you have created this amazing document and not charged us anything is wonderful. And
Well,
we
I'm
are
glad
very
you're
appreciative.
welcome. You're very welcome. And I'm glad you asked. So.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that makes me happy to be on the board when we feel like we're actually making a difference. Anyway, okay.
Thank you.
All right, so that was item number 13. So that brings us to short-term rentals. So I provided you with the all the changes. So I chose to just strike out, instead of deleting it completely, I just used the strikeout method for things that we were thinking we would delete. And then the underlined and red stuff is what we added at our last meeting. Today, I guess I'd like to focus on the areas where we had questions from Mr. Wendell so that we can utilize his time here. And then I'm assuming that we'll have more discussion after we get a feel from him as to what we should or should not include. I guess do you want to just let us know what as we work through the document, kind of your thoughts on? I guess I should say one thing, sorry, before you start, that an intro paragraph that you did not like, Mr. Carroll, that went on and on about different things. What do you think of the way that I essentially tried to summarize it into that much shorter thing at the top?
I liked it.
I mean, I think I captured what we were wanting as far as our concerns about making sure that the intent of this policy is a good neighbor. And, I think I tried to capture that. Did you have any issues with what I cut out of all that language in that the very first purposes statement?
No, I mean, a statement of purpose is a statement of purpose. If you exempted or took certain things out, you don't intend for that to be the purpose of this ordinance. So there's no legal requirement.
Okay. And did you think there was anything that I didn't put in there that should be one of our purposes from your perspective?
No.
Okay. All right.
Fine.
All right. So then if you want to take it away.
Sure. One thing I'll address before we get into it is there were a number of deletions throughout the document of references to the Wisconsin Administrative Code. Now, my speculation is that those were done maybe because of redundancy. Let me find an example.
Yeah, if you could find an example. I thought I was only deleting amendments that were specific to the town, to the Holland, references to their own ordinances and rules. If I deleted a state thing, I probably did it unintentionally, and so I should change that, but let me know which one you're talking
Madam
about.
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Carroll.
I think the other, if I remember right, the other reason was some of these references were stuff that they had to do anyway to get their dad cap license. So we were just being repetitive.
Correct.
Okay, so that is precisely the point that I wanted to address. The reason you should consider leaving those in there is that if you leave it to the state, or if you take the position that the state, they have to do that for the state anyway, you also have to understand that that means we'd be leaving enforcement to the state. So by incorporating references to the administrative code in this, that means if Mike goes out and inspects a building, or whoever you decide is appropriate for this, and finds a violation of it, we can act on that without needing to rely on a state inspector coming in. So even though there's a violation of a state administrative code, by leaving it in here, that allows us to enforce our ordinance.
So I will just say that we did discuss in kind of in depth, like what would our enforcement be? And I guess I will speak for the group, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was that we don't see the zoning office going out and doing inspections. That this process and this ordinance is really for if we are made aware of a violation or made aware of a problem, we would have the mechanism to then do something about said. So does that change it at all if we're not the ones seeking out and inspecting these properties?
So that actually supports my position to leave them in, because
Okay.
then if a problem is reported to us, if we take all of those out and rely solely on the state administrative code as our means of enforcement, that means all we can do is go and then
And report it to the state.
And
But maybe that's what we want to do.
if that's the position the
is-
committee decides,
So
that's fine.
committee members, is that what the intent we were thinking when, I mean, I think what the vibe I was getting from the committee was that we want to be able to handle a problem if it occurs, but otherwise we intend to be somewhat hands-off.
Chair,
Yes.
I agree with that, but the other idea we were trying to state was that we're going to just be a supplement to what the state mandates are, so that more along the lines of just good neighbor things and just a supplement, and not to try to take on a big burden for Mike or whoever.
Right.
Yeah, so I agree with everything. So I guess for my question is, what about enforcement? We were concerned that we didn't really have enforcement. So somebody complains and then Mike goes out there and then he sees that there is something. So the enforcement is that we contact the state. I'm not quite sure we didn't know if we had that power.
Well, it depends on what the alleged violation is, but if it is something that is not in this ordinance, but we know is a DAT cap regulation or something like that, then yes, our only recourse would be to report it to the state and hope that they take some action.
So, I mean, I think our intent was that the things that we left in here were the things that we felt were the policies that we wanted to be able to enforce, and everything else we were comfortable leaving with the state. Is that correct?
And we can go example by example.
Okay. Sure.
I just wanted to,
Right.
I saw it so much, I wanted to address that.
Yeah. Okay. So now I know what you're talking about. So yeah, that was actually our intent.
Okay.
But yes, and there was several of those where it was asked, Mike, if it's okay to take this out. Yeah.
Moving on to the definitions page. Actually, I think I understand why this was removed, so I'll actually not address that one.
I had a question about, I mean, we do need to figure out who exactly,
Yes.
because clerk was the, I don't know if we need to put in the zoning administrator or if it's the committee like that. Do you know if is there any statute that would regulate who the body, like, can it be an employee of the county? Does it have to be the governing
That would
body,
fall
or-
solidly under county's home rule authority.
So
So
we can
whatever you
decide.
decide.
Okay, all right. Okay, go on.
So the question I was dealing with was the last sentence in dwelling unit, but I see now that the language removed was referred to in a town ordinance. So, and then guest register, I don't need to address because you just answered that question.
Yeah, that's the same thing with the food prep. We cut that out for the same reason.
The next question I saw was whether we should do this as a license or a conditional use permit. The note I made there is if you do the conditional use permit, then you can piggyback off of all of the policies and procedures that are already established for conditional use permit. So they'll need to come in and make the presentation, and you'll have the opportunity to set conditions above and beyond what may be in here. A license, on the other hand, would be a different process. So you basically have to start that from scratch. But on the other hand, if there's something you don't like about the CUP process as it applies to this specific application, having them be two separate procedures will allow you that flexibility.
Go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
Yeah. Did I remember that if it's a CUP and the property changes hands, that CUP stays with the property?
Is that correct, Mike? Oh, Mr. Bindle, sorry.
Currently, yeah, that's how it goes, that CUP is taken out for any conditional use.
Stays with the property. So that was a concern for this group, that we didn't feel that a short-term rental should pass to another owner without the new owner applying for.
Right,
Yeah.
which was having me lean towards the license approach.
Right. And the other issue we were having was we've been discussing the financial aspect of, so a CUP is $500. And if we were going to do a different amount, then we would be creating, we would have to say we're making an exemption to our CUP process, and that would open up that can of worms. And so we were hesitant to do that. So the licensure thing came up as a potential. So I guess, are there specific, like if we were to do a licensing process, we would need to write a procedure for the license, we would write the criteria of how you get the license, like well, this ordinance would be that criteria.
Either or, you could say in the ordinance, refer to the short-term license application process. I think it would be simpler to just include it in the short-term rental ordinance.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is in here, like all the criteria that you wanted to
That we're
see.
looking for, right?
So it would just be the actual application, like what
Right.
they get the application
And-
to.
And the nice thing about the licensure is that they would also have to prove that they are doing their DATCAP license, renewing their DATCAP license each year. So in some ways it's better because the CUP is a one and done, right? I mean, a CUP, once they've got it, they don't come back to us unless they want to change something. Correct?
That's currently how it is. I mean, there's a condition that you can put in
That they have,
short-term rental that they have to renew it every 2 years, 3 years, every year.
they have to do a new CUP?
Right.
What's that?
So like in Sauk County, non-metallic mining, they have to come back every 3 years to renew their
CUP?
mining. Right now, we have ours for the new ones that came out. I think there's only 2 quarries right now that they have to renew them every 5 years. Because I think Linda's known that we've got one down on Rock that we've gone through extra hearings because of conditions and all that stuff.
Right. So, I mean, to me, that seems financially to be, having to redo the CUP process even every 5 years, that's $1,000 in 5 years. That seems maybe a bit exorbitant, but the licensing, if we decided on $100 a year, I mean, they could go 10 years before they would reach that $1,000 threshold. Or we could go every 2 years, we would there's no laws we would make up how often it has to be. That would be determined by us. That's
Yeah, I think
statute or anything.
this was written to piggyback off of the DATCAP deadlines.
Right, which makes sense, because when they're applying for one, they might as well do both and just be done with it. And You could have it slightly staggered so that they already have their DAC cap approval before they apply, so that we would have that in hand. Okay, so and obviously I think we need to talk about that a little further, but it's good to know from you as far as like what we legally can do. Okay.
All right, so. The renewal license, just whatever you decide for the first part, the language needs to match that as you go through.
Right.
Match language. I think adding the website is good, so long as that link remains
Active.
live.
Where are you at now?
So,
Sorry, I just.
so operation of short-term rentals, yeah, B1, where we put the link to the DAC cap site. Just, we wanted to make it as easy as possible for them to make sure that they're getting their DAC cap license. So you're right, because if we have a dead link, then that becomes a problem.
Yeah. So maybe just revise to information can be found at the DATCAP website or something along those lines. Contact DATCAP for more information on obtaining a.
Instead of the specific link.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so. I mean, all I did was Google. Do you know what the problem is? Is that I would Google either like short-term rental or something like that, but the state uses tourist rooming house, which is such a weird thing that a term that nobody uses. So maybe if we just say, look up at the Wisconsin DAC cap tourist rooming house,
Yes.
then anyone would be able to Google it. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
It's numbered as 5 is struck through and then it's back to 2.
Oh, I know that it was not numbering correctly when I was doing this. I have to fix all that.
No, actually I think it's.
It took.
I think it's correct.
Okay.
But it's the no recreational vehicles, campers, tents, or other temporary lodging arrangements shall be permitted. And then it says, ask Mr. Windle. Ask me what?
Hold on. Which page is it on again?
It's
Page
it's
4.
what
Oh, I
we
see it. Yeah.
Put that in or not, I think.
Well, I think our question was, was it something along the lines of, do we have the authority to say what they can and can't have parked on there?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, I know my question was, what if someone wants to rent out an RV on Airbnb? Because that happens all the time.
rent out an RV on an Airbnb or rent out?
Yeah, no, like you can go to VRBO or Airbnb and you can, click on a location and there will be, people who have an RV on a piece of property that they rent out. So do we want to limit that and say that they can't do that? I don't know.
I think the operative word in here is the or other temporary lodging arrangements. I think a reasonable reading of that makes it clear that you are talking about someone renting a house, driving an
Bringing
RV
the
up,
RV there. Okay.
using that to the gentleman who was here earlier.
Okay.
Maybe he wants to sleep 24, brings an RV in, then takes it out. If the RV is there and stationary for some time, I don't think that counts as a
Well,
temporary.
yeah, and it does say as means of providing additional accommodation. So that,
Right.
yeah, you're right. That does really clarify that. So,
Madam Chair?
yes, go ahead.
Was it also because of if people lived in a house that had a certain number of people based on the sewer system, then they brought in campers or tents or whatever else to try to just have more people on site, but yet possibly we're using the same facilities? Is it just to stop that? Was that some of our discussion? I'm just not
Yes,
remembering.
I do. Yeah, I think you're correct that we wanted to make sure that the people that are renting these aren't letting people bring in all these other things so that they can up the number of and charging for extra people on the property and then overdoing their septic or whatever. So we should leave that in there.
I think
and
that
it's
was
not a
our
problem.
concern.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. So that'll stay as written. All right.
In section 4, the second sentence, I guess, you
Yeah.
have 50 miles everywhere else. You have 35
Oh,
miles there. I think
change
it's
it.
just a typo.
It is. Yeah. We do have a question though under that section. 280-4? Is that where you were, right?
I was at 280-3
Oh.
C sub 4. So unless
Okay,
the property
yep,
owner
got
resides
it.
within
Yep,
50.
okay.
Again, just a typo. Remove for redundancy. So I did have a question. Sub 11, it's the basically explaining a process of the zoning administrator, a health officer obtaining the equivalent of a warrant in order to enter onto the property.
Mhm.
Just wanted to know what the committee's thought process was in removing that.
So again, this goes back to our thought that we would not be, the zoning department would not be inspecting these properties. That if there's a complaint, it would come to this committee, the parties would come to this committee to talk about what the problem is. That's been my understanding of what we're looking for. We're not looking for Mike to go out and inspect, I don't think, but I guess.
I think it was more on the basis of someone, if we had quiet hours that start at 10 o'clock at night, and there's a complaint of someone that's at 11 o'clock, I'm not going to go out there 11 o'clock at night to see if someone's making too much noise, but then to turn around and come back and say, come back in and we'll review your conditional use because we might revoke it. I think that was the whole idea of
That,
For the
right, so,
license, yeah.
so that was, does that make sense that we were, that we did purposefully take that language out of there?
Then this one you did spell out, if one owner owns multiple units in the same building, would it be one license? According to the definition for dwelling unit, each unit would be a
Separate application?
Each unit is a different dwelling unit, whether or not to treat them all as one or have a license for each unit, that would be a policy decision. I would advise on, if it's a separate unit, have it have a separate license. It's going to be inconvenient for the landowner, and it's possible in the licensing process, you write in some exemption to the fee or some reduction, if you're applying for.
Get a discount, you get a discount if you have multiple units. I mean, that is something to consider because there are people that have multiple units in the same building.
But,
but
the inspection of the septic system for one building is only one inspection.
Right.
So yeah, that would be something worth considering.
So can I ask a question? Because this is confusing because we know that there's also separate. So should we attach this to septic systems? Because if this gentleman had an 18 place with one septic, right?
He did, he said that their maximum occupancy was 18 and we don't know the status of the.
But who's going to regulate the 18 people? Because we were talking about, I mean, the most I've ever really seen is 5-bedroom. That's 10 people. You don't see, or that's 18 people. That's a 9-bedroom septic system. That's 3 to 4 times larger than most of them. So we were talking one time though, is if someone else, say like Mike had a house out there that was sized for 4 bedrooms, and hey, it's graduation time and a whole bunch of people camp out at his house 1 or 2 nights.
Around enforcing that.
Right.
The only difference being that that's a one time a year event versus someone who's perpetually renting out that.
If it was me, I would be renting out to 18 people myself. I mean.
I know, I agree. I mean, we don't want to have different rules for.
But I think it's very feasible he rent to 18 people. I mean, Lake Geneva and stuff, I've been there where there's 18 people in a house every weekend, it's not an unreasonable something they see.
But I wonder if
gatherings.
Lake Geneva has the condition that they have to have an appropriately sized septic tank.
Yeah.
Does a state statute dictate, I mean, doesn't it dictate how many people you can have residing in a house and how big the septic has to be? Isn't that the whole point of
Right, I
zoning
mean,
our
for the
septic?
pouch part of it, I mean, for every bedroom is considered 2 people at the max. So if it's a 4-bedroom house, that's 8 people.
Right, and they frequently put more than 2 people. I mean, a lot of times there's bunk beds and like 2 double beds and a bunk bed in one room, which would be 3 times the number of people that the septic thinks there is in that room.
Right.
So I don't know if we're
Feel like
getting
they're
into
gonna
the
suffer
details.
the immediate consequences of any overload of the septic system.
Well, there's also consequences to it, getting into our drinking water though, which that
But
does affect.
the
You know, once it
question
gets in the
was,
aquifer, it affects.
Do
all
we
the-
have a license separate, and how do we decide how many license? Like, when you said one building and they have one more than one unit, so they have like 2 apartments, is that what you're talking about? And they would be separate license, right?
It's,
But you know, getting back to the septic thing, I mean, maybe we do have language in here where we would say that they have to state in the CU or in the license or whatever, the maximum occupancy of that house that we will then, and we will know before the CUP, before they walk in here, if their septic is appropriate to be able to handle that. Because if they're making the statement that it's going to be 18 people, then shouldn't it be for 18 people?
Right, I mean, you can make the condition on it that it's gotta be a size for a 9-bedroom sanitation, but once again, who's going to go out there and enforce it to?
Well, you have on record what size their current
Right, I
septic
don't know
is.
that, but I mean,
So we would even, so we'll know if it's a problem. Let's put it that way. We would, if we put this condition in, we would know if there's concern. But then if we're putting it in there, we have to enforce it, right?
but then where do you start? Do you go to the county first, or do you fill out the state paperwork first?
Well, and I keep thinking about all this.
Chicken and egg.
Yeah, and also, you know, do you, when you're building a house, you have to say how many bedrooms you're gonna have, but you don't say how many people are gonna be living in your house, do you?
Well, on the maintenance agreement that gets recorded the rest of your deeds, it states that it's for 3 bedrooms and or 6 people. So it states on the document that gets recorded at the.
But what if they move in and they have 10 people in their family? We don't do anything about that. I mean, once it's in, we don't do anything to make sure that not too many people are using the bathroom.
I mean, we can't stop anyone saying,
Right.
somebody can't buy the house because you got 5 people on some side.
Exactly. So that's my point. I'm like, I don't want us to get into where we're unfairly implementing, you know, unfairly saying, well, because you want to use it as an Airbnb, you can't have 10 people. Whereas if a 10-person family moved in, we would have nothing to say about it. So, sorry, I don't know if there's a legal question in there other than we just need to make a decision. Like, I mean, do you feel that we have the authority to say, to make them tell us what the maximum occupancy will be? And, you know,
I think that's in here, actually.
I know we talked, yeah, I don't remember now because I haven't looked at it since the last time I did this, but we did talk about.
But yeah, I mean, like the fire marshal knows how many people can sit in Kelly's coffee house. And, you know, that there's a business application to it. It is a business, an income generating thing. And so I think it's fair to request that information. What is the intended maximum occupancy? And then we can compare that to the records of the septic and, you know, make that a consideration in there.
Okay. All right.
Because I mean, if we have a 1,500 square foot building and they say maximum occupancy is 10 people, I think we're going to have follow-up questions.
Okay.
It doesn't just have to be septic related.
Okay. All right.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Hi, this is Molly Meister. Do I have permission to ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Yep, so committee, this is Molly Meister. My husband Brian and I operate the short-term rental on Yeager Lane in Lone Rock that we discussed last October. In reading through this ordinance, thank you for all your work on this. We did have one question about the residency requirement about being located 50 miles from the property, and we were wondering if it could be extended to 75 miles, just by way that we've been in operation for going on 2 years. We're in year 2 and we've had 0 issues. And we are 58 miles away from our property. So something for the group to discuss.
Okay, thank you. All right. Would you like to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so 280-5 sub B sub 3. This was removed. I understand now because of the redundancy and because we don't necessarily want to enforce it. It might be helpful to have, but if you want to leave it out.
Which
then-
one are you talking about again?
So a copy of the most recent
Lodging inspection report? Okay.
Wait, where is it? Oh, B or D?
Yep, B.
Bravo 3.
Oh, okay.
I,
Got it.
I don't know how hard a copy of that would be for a operator to get to. So if it's a large administrative fee or something like that, or a large wait time, it's possible that's not feasible. So yeah, leaving that out, I think is fine.
Is okay? Okay.
Um,
What do you think about our liability insurance? Leaving in the requirement for liability insurance? It seems like a good idea, but we did debate whether we wanted to require that. We did debate that quite a bit. From a legal standpoint, whether or not they do or don't have it does not necessarily have any liability for us.
Nope.
It's just, okay, all right. Okay,
yeah, if they want to risk their property burning
Burning
down
down.
without
Whatever.
coverage, that's
to them.
their choice.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, does that mean we're going to strike it or leave it?
We had decided to leave it, but we also decided we were going to kind of think about it. So we can go either way. There's no legal reason we don't have any increased liability for not having it in there as a
Well,
requirement.
This, to me, is another example where are we asking SDR people more restrictive or more demanding
Then
things we
the
would
person who owns the
anyone
house.
else? So
Right.
I would say we don't need
Delete
it.
it. What does the rest of the committee think on that?
I think we're talking about it's showing that we really want people to have liability insurance. We probably, I'm sure, would never go out and verify that people have it, but it's
Well,
just
we're
our
asking
way
for
of
written-
stating we feel that it's important.
Although it does say written evidence of liability insurance as required. So it sounds, to me, that is written like that we're asking for written evidence that they have insurance.
Yeah, because it's talking about the application.
So do we think we can remove it, as Mr. Caro is suggesting?
I would be in favor of that.
Yeah,
Anyone else?
I could go either way on it, so I would be fine with removal.
Okay. Ms. Gentis,
Yes.
remove, okay. All right, moving on.
It's interesting that the seller's permit was left in here too. Is that basically the same
I don't know why we left
process?
I don't remember the discussion about the seller's permit, why we left that in there. Oh, maybe because that was not in the DAT cap. That was not in the DAT cap
Okay.
requirements, I think was our
It would
discussion.
probably be in the DOR requirements though.
Probably, yeah.
So I can research that if you'd like, or
I mean,
if we
does
know.
anyone else remember exactly why we left that one in, but took all the other ones out?
I think we were getting punchy by that point.
So too, I don't remember either.
So does it make sense that we would delete that language since we're trying to stick with our own lane, our little lane here?
Yeah.
Okay, so delete. And again, just from a legal perspective, is there any ramifications from us? I mean, I can't, it's not if they don't have a seller's permit, that's not our business to enforce.
No, if it's a state required permit, then it's on the state to enforce.
Okay. Moving on.
Sub B, you had asked Mr. Wendell if this is really necessary. This is the written certification by the property owner that the short-term rental meets the requirements of this chapter and applicable state and county laws, ordinances, and regulations. My response was necessary, no. Best practice, absolutely. And this would be a situation where our liability exposure would be more limited if they are submitting a written certification that they are complying with the entirety of this ordinance and the DAT cap regulations and the Department of Revenue.
Right, so this covers us so that
Okay.
essentially they're signing saying, I say that this is all true, that I really have done all these things.
Yeah.
And if we find that they haven't, then that's part of the mechanism that we
We can use it
utilize
to
to say,
enforce
to
this
enforce this
because,
ordinance.
yeah, they'd be in
You
violation.
said it was, you said you had a DAT cap license, but you in fact don't have a DAT cap license. So we're revoking your CUP based on this ordinance because of that.
Or your license.
Okay, so I think, yeah, or whatever, yeah. All right, so that does seem like we should keep that. Does anyone disagree with keeping that in? Okay, all right.
And then sub E, another one. Necessary? No, this is they can be denied on the basis of unpaid taxes. It's not necessary. I think Jeff would appreciate it. And so you don't necessarily have to enforce anything in here. Except when you're using definitive language like this. So maybe an amendment to it. If the applicant has unpaid outstanding fees, taxes, or special charges or forfeiture owed to Richland County, then
30 days to pay it or something, or 60 days to pay it?
or this may be a factor for consideration of the issuance of the license. So that
Oh,
way
so
you
we
just have
soften the language.
Yeah, then you
Gives
just
us
have
the
discretion.
opportunity to decide how much on their unpaid taxes. matter.
$5. I
Although
don't,
maybe they're gonna do it as an STR so they can pay their taxes.
that's,
Income to pay the tax.
that was the thought process there. We
Um,
wanted to be able to, this is an additional enforcement mechanism for those who are tax delinquent, but changing that language also allows you as a committee discretion because there's entirely situations where an STR owner it's going to be in the county's benefit to grant a license, even if there's some
For them to
debt outstanding.
Okay.
And then you did add in here licenses non-transferable, which is one of the things that you addressed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And renewal.
I didn't see any questions for you in there, but maybe you thought of something of the stuff we deleted.
Redundancy,
Yeah.
talked about earlier. So my next note is on 280-9 sub C sub
One. Mhm.
which we just talked about.
Yep.
And then sub for that judicial review. You asked, do you need to add a step where they can appeal to the whole county board? You don't need to. Whether you want this committee's decisions to skip right ahead to the circuit court or whether you want to bring it before the whole board.
Board. I feel like I'd want the board certainly to be behind it if we were going to be taken to court, right?
And it makes sense to me because then any opportunity for escalation before a final decision, I think is in the best interest of both parties. So yeah, you could say the action. So right now, the way it works is the zoning administrator receives the application or the renewal application or whatever. And then if he says, no, I'm not renewing it, they can appeal to this committee. And then we would just add another step where they can appeal this committee.
If they don't like our decision, then they could appeal to the board. And then after that, it would go to the courts.
Yep.
That to me does anyone have any problems with that? To me, that just seems like smart practice. Okay.
Question, Mike,
Yep.
does it go from this committee to straight to county board or does it go to Board of Adjustment for appeals?
That was the question that came to mind for me because it is an action of the zoning committee, but it's not necessarily a zoning action. Let me look more at the committee structure document. to determine if that would be the best.
Yeah.
Because it could theoretically be that this committee is not the first where it gets appealed to. So it could be the zoning administrator's decision to the appeals board.
Because the Board of Adjustment is non-county board supervisors, that, right? The thought being that they're citizen members that
Correct.
can make an unbiased
I was
decision.
trying to remember how it's gone in the past, so. Not here in Iowa County, but
So maybe we insert them somewhere in the process.
Will
or
you just
make-
let me know whatever process you think makes appropriate, and I can change the language for us to review then?
so if I remember right, the other part of it too is that this committee is represented by Mr. Wendell. Board of Adjustments, they have to get their own attorneys.
So we wouldn't want to put that burden on them, would we?
Well, the only thing is that this committee appeals something, then their decision goes to full county board, so it's still, I don't know how that all works out with.
And the zoning board of appeals doesn't necessarily have any authority to dictate action to the county in this sense. So I'm leaning towards not bringing them in on
Into the
this, but I
issue?
will
Okay.
get a solid answer.
Okay, yeah, just let me know, and then I can add the language in for when we review this again.
And then my next note was 280-10 sub A. One, I think we'll imprison them in the Richland County Jail.
Oh, yeah, not Sheboygan,
Sheboygan,
sorry.
Probably.
I was getting a
Um,
little tired by the time I got to the end of it too. Yeah, yeah.
But then there's another Ask Mr. Wendell.
Yeah, so I think our questions really just had to do with making sure that we're on solid ground with the jail part of it
And the penalty.
and the penalty. Well, the monetary things, I think we do have the authority to set, because we do that for other violations.
Well, so then my question would be, do you want this in here at all? Because it sounds like what you want this document to do is allow you to control the licensing process, renewal, revocation.
Revocation. Well, but if we don't have this piece, let's just say we revoke a CUP, but they keep renting their Airbnb out. Without this paragraph, there's nothing we can, we've revoked the CUP, but then what would be, what mechanism will we have to try to
Citation
encourage
of the
them to
zoning
stop?
ordinance. Because it would be.
Because they didn't have a
use of
CUP.
the-
So we have and they're fines with that,
Yes.
that are already established?
Up to $50 a day for each violation plus court costs.
So that, then we wouldn't need this language. We would just rely on our normal, if you're violating a zoning ordinance, this is the procedure. But we don't need to describe that in here at all, you don't think?
I mean, you
Or just refer to it?
refer to it. So penalty, any person who violates any provision of this chapter shall be subject to enforcement action under the Richland County zoning ordinance.
Ordinance, that's already in place. Okay. Mr. Carroll, did you have a question?
Yeah, but that's, whether it's a license or a CUP, either way, we could still use that
It would
language.
still be a zoning.
Yep.
Okay,
Because
so-
we would write into the licensure process clarity that the license is a grant of deviation from the standards found in the zoning ordinance.
okay, but in terms of exactly what the repercussions are, it sounds like we're still a little vague.
No, he said they're defined in our zoning ordinance as to, if you violate any zoning, anything in our zoning ordinance, you get first a fine. I mean, it's essentially what's written here, right? There's the first offense, second offense,
I'm just saying that if someone is just trying to do a short-term rental.
and don't want to have to read the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're not prepared to deal with a lot of rules and regulations, they should potentially rethink their plan of action. Or just throw a pitch out for my colleagues, consult with an attorney with expertise in the
Right.
area.
So is there any downside to leaving the language in here that, and the language be exactly the same as what's in our zoning ordinance already? Is there any downside to just repeating the language, so it's just handy right here?
Nope.
Okay, so I should find out whatever that language is
I
in here.
can send it to you.
Okay,
if you
perfect. I mean, it just make it easier for him to know, instead of having to literally slog through the zoning ordinance. Which is, how many pages is the zoning ordinance?
Well, I was just going to kind of go on what Steve is saying, because if we have a separate ordinance here, does it, I mean, it's going to have to relate back somewhere saying this is part of the
Part of the zoning.
zoning ordinance. Because the other part of it too is it's going to be in Bloom and Sylvan townships also.
If they're not county zoned, we
Colorado,
don't
which-
have
I mean,
authority.
that's why I just didn't know for sure. This kicks into,
Only
these
townships that
different-
have adopted county zoning. Right? I mean, we don't have the authority to make STRs that are in a township that has not adopted county zoning. We have no authority to tell them what they can and cannot do, correct? Okay,
because I was going to say, this is like telecommunication towers where we get every township. That's a separate ordinance itself.
Yeah, the towers are governed at state law.
so would this ordinance be adopted as a part of our existing zoning ordinance, or is it just, it's an additional separate ordinance?
I mean, the way it's looking, it looks like it's this whole separate ordinance itself.
Well, that's how it would, I mean, that's just the format of what we got from the town of Holland. They made their own ordinance for this. But we have an existing, a standing zoning ordinance that we just keep amending every time we make these changes to, properties and stuff. Would this, or does it make legally, is it easier or better or whatever to have it be a standalone ordinance?
If you include it as an amendment to the zoning ordinance, then it kind of forces them to read the zoning
The whole
ordinance.
thing?
And then you could take this entire penalty section out because that penalty section would
Would
be
already
spelled
be-
out later on in the.
It feels a little like it'd be just easier all the way around to have a separate,
I
as
think
far as for the ease of
easier.
people trying
I
to
mean, they
get,
come in, they get this and
then they know what they have to
Yeah.
follow. Is there any downside to doing it that way?
Nope.
Okay.
And again, having it be a separate one, you preclude any argument that, well, it's in the zoning ordinance, it should apply to something beyond the terms of the short-term rental, so.
Okay, yeah, we want to be, we're trying to be very focused. Okay,
And that was all the notes I had.
yep, that's it.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Maybe it's in here, I read this again,
I know.
but we talked about a grandfather of,
It's not in there. That language is not in there.
yeah, so that's, okay, we talked about, so there's a lot of people right now who are probably doing this in the county who don't have DAC cap or, and that we wanted to give them a year to, or that was our discussion, give them a year to come under the rules of the state and follow that. And we wanted to have what we called, I guess it could be a grandmother calls instead of a grandfather.
Right, or some,
Anyway.
yeah, some sort of,
Is there, I guess my question, is that possible?
like a
And
grace period
Yeah.
where they would have time to come into
Right.
compliance.
So to the extent that this ordinance applies, I have no idea whether DATCAP or Department of Revenue would offer them the same mercy.
Right, but. well,
But yeah, you
We only
could,
care about us, yeah.
you could write into even, the resolution adopting this saying that they have, 30 days from the passage of this resolution to alert us to the fact that they are operating under this, but shall have up to 1 year in order to come into compliance with the terms of this ordinance. It's because we want to know that they're out there. We want to get an accurate count because, you're going to get new applications. You want to understand if there are 3 of these in a row already, you maybe are not going to grant the license to the 4th. So that way we know who they are, what they're operating, but they still have that time to come in.
And if there's no, if someone has one right now and we put this into place, there's no argument they can make, well, I had it before there were these rules, so I don't have to live up to these rules.
I mean, you can make the argument. I would feel comfortable refuting that argument in the appropriate forum.
Okay.
I think, we pass it and later that day we go out and try and enforce it. That's one thing, but,
Giving them a year to
month
come into
to-
compliance.
yeah.
Is a reasonable.
more than reasonable.
Okay. So I'm gonna probably need a little bit of help with that language though, if you wanna think about that. Not quite sure exactly what we would say or how, I'm sure there's some sort of legal way we're supposed to say that. Yes.
and then, I guess it was in here, but we wanted everything to be a license at the same date rather than when they, like, if they apply now, then was it June 1 or whatever, they'd have to pay their license fee again because we want to get it on a standard way.
On a cycle. So yeah,
Yeah.
how other ones have done it is like if you apply in April, and it's a June 1st is the annual renewal date, then, there's a proration as far as, and then get everybody on the same cycle. I don't know, is that
Yeah.
better or worse though, to have all the licenses coming in at once? Bad? Would you rather have them scattered throughout whenever their date is? I know. I mean, I am thinking about the logistics of that. I am thinking of the logistics of everyone's being the same date every year could be logistically a little tricky.
Well, we can maybe make 2 dates,
What's your reasoning for why not just let them, when they apply, that would be their renewal date?
because I think it's harder to go through the records and figure out who hasn't paid and who has. You gotta just, if you have one whole list and you can see when they've done it.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming we're going to come up with some way of sending out renewal notices the same way you do with the septic systems. Like we'll have a system that tells us although that is no, that's not in the same schedule because
It's on a 3-year.
3-year schedule that changes.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that's in here as a question is, are you approving them or is this committee approving them? And I do think that that's a question we want to consider. And you need to consider, because obviously you might make a decision that might make some people upset. And so we have to determine how we want to handle that. That's an extraordinary talent if that's, yeah. In zoning, I can't see how, why would anyone be mad about zoning? Okay, so we obviously have many more things that we need to iron out, but we're slowly getting closer to, I think, getting a real solid idea of how we want to proceed. Okay, so is there anything else we want to add to that discussion? So I think if you want to just send me what we've talked about as far as language, I'll go ahead and make these changes. Before the next meeting, any of the corrections that I make, I will send you just to make sure that I've captured everything that you talked about today, but I don't think, do we think we will need his inputs next meeting, or would it be better to kind of hash it out again in its somewhat final form, and then before we do any kind of final adoption, we would bring it back in one more time?
So, and also, because you're doing a lot of this work, I think you need to figure out when you can get that done, and then we review it and go from there.
I mean, I have to say, I wouldn't mind taking a break from this for a little bit, but on the other hand, while it's all fresh in our minds, what we've been talking about, it's probably better to just keep moving forward. I can go through and make all these changes. I just have to wait until the video is up, because I'll go back through and listen to the video, make sure I captured everything. So we could have our discussion, the next one, and then we could plan on a November, like kind of having a finalized idea in November to have Corporation Council come back before we.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
There are places in there too that still reference the town or meaning the township versus Richland County. I just wanted to point that out. That there were some that were missed.
Yeah, the next document I'm going to send will be, I'm going to get rid of all of the crossed out language. So we'll just have the added language, and then it'll be easier for me to see where I've missed things. So yeah, I know I saw that too. I'm like, God, how did I miss that? But I did. Okay, so we have a plan moving forward. We'll continue this discussion. Man, how long have we been talking about this?
Oh,
at least a year. At least a year. Yeah. But we're getting there. Okay, so that brings us to.
Are we still we have to do the rest of the agenda today?
Well, we do need to just briefly, I don't think budgets is going to take very long. I think that they.
In manure storage, I just want to give an update what we're looking at.
Oh yeah, so let's go to 14, manure storage ordinance.
Oh, we have an existing manure storage ordinance, and there's some things I'm looking at. I'm talking with other counties. One of the things is we've had a minimum size where they have to come and get the permit. And our issue is now, and you've seen them around the county, we've got a lot of these poultry facilities going in. They're under the 3,500 cubic feet, under the 30-day storage. amount, so they don't need a permit. And they scare me a little bit because they still have a lot of them awarded. Where is it going?
What are they doing with their manure?
So I want to
Right.
talk to other counties. Some other counties have no minimum size. So I want to find out how they're handling certain things. I want to make stuff with state performance standards stronger as far as those that are getting a manure storage permit. And then the certificate of use, revocation of the certificate of use. So if somebody's violating, we can revoke it and they can't use their manure storage unit. The other thing is, Candace has asked us to send our list of fees, and I would like to look at what we were charging for them. And the other part of it is this something that we want to, I would prefer to see a lot of these fees be out of the ordinances and in a schedule of fees by the county rather than in the ordinance. Because then if you need to change something, you have to.
You have to amend the ordinance to
And
change the
to me,
fee.
it makes more sense doing, by county board resolution, doing it at
Fee schedule.
fee schedule. So, and what I would do is what we've done before, this would be the third revision of the second, we had the original ordinance, we had a revision in 08, and now this would be, we've repealed and just redone the whole ordinance instead of trying to make
Amend the
amendments.
last
So
one.
that's where we're at. I'm hoping this winter to have it closer once we figure out this sort of thing and I get some more questions answered. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's an important one to work on, especially since we haven't updated it for a long time. Yeah. All right. So that brings us to the 2024.
So are we gonna talk, I think this is super important.
The manure storage?
Yeah, so I hope we're gonna have more discussion.
Well, when
about
she
that
brings the
later.
ordinance forward, we'll have a
Yeah.
thorough discussion of.
And then before I do, I want to also have Mr. Wendell look it over before we
Yes.
get to that point, but
Yeah,
we already have an ordinance we're enforcing, so it's just adding,
Modifying it,
Modifying.
updating.
we're very concerned about this.
Is it on the land conservation website? Is that ordinance on the website? Yeah, so if you want to see the
I'll look
current
at that.
policy, it's on the land conservation's website. Okay, so now we're ready for the 2024 budget, land conservation. So you met with Candace.
Friday. And put it in your folders. I got copies if you want to look at it. I thought it was in your folders, not. Basically, our Fund 10, which is our general budget, we put in for a 5% plus one step for myself, my position, and 20 hours a week for Tammy's former position, but that all depend on what's decided. So the difference between the 2023 budget and the 2024 budget is be $13,679.26 less.
So just one quick note for everyone, DATCAP did communicate with Kathy what our staffing grant amounts will be, and it's $3,400 less
Right.
instead of the 1,100 that we predicted. And that has to do with that resolution that we passed last month that the state.
So in Fund 10, the biggest, that's the difference, and I broke out, where the changes were. The decrease in secretarial, if depending on how things go, and then the dues increased by $93 and the state aid was decreased by the 3,400. Fund 64, which I call it the Mill Creek Fund. I don't know what the official title is. But we were asking for 24 for $2,174 in tax levy. We have a state required inspections. We have two dams that need to be inspected. That's where we went with the RFP with 4 or 5 other counties and to negotiate that. So we got a lot cheaper. Fund 66 is our cost sharing fund, and there's no tax levy. That's the one you approve those contracts for. We spend the money, we get the money back in reimbursement. Fund 72 is the conservation planner technician, and that's the 2 other positions in my office. I show an increase of $22,556.45. It's a step, 5% plus one step. Our technician by next year will be taking single insurance. There's no change in state aid. There is a question that's I'm working on with Derek on, and they show like $75,000 in that. It's a non-lapsing account. $75,000 we've underspent But part of that is also the tax levy that went in. I'm assuming it would be the tax levy that's came in this year, for 2023 budget. Plus the fact, but part of it too is last year we had no technician from April 1st through
September 12th.
September 12th. So that's some of that. So that's something we'll be looking at how, what's actually in there and what we can use to offset or how we're going to handle some of those changes. So Fund 78 is nursery stock, and that's no tax levy. It's like we sell trees, they pay for the trees. You know, we don't spend any county money in that. At Fund 79 is Ash Creek. There is no tax levy. That's where we're kind of working. We haven't got very far yet, but we're working with the DNR foresters about looking at doing a timber sale, which would also include, we have to do a timber stand improvement. The look cost some money. So, and I've already mentioned to Candace, it'd be, what we've done in the past is the sale from the tree sale, money from the tree sale through county board resolution gets put back into this account. So we don't have to use county tax levy to manage the property out there. And Fund 80 is wildlife damage, and there's no tax levy. It's, again, we spend the money, we get the reimbursement from the state. So that's mine. So.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Question on Fund 10. It says decrease secretarial to 20 hours. It says 172,172.26. I'm assuming that's an incorrect figure.
That's a typo, and yeah. Sorry about that.
Very well, yeah,
Good one.
very well paid.
Yeah, no, I'll have to.
Is it supposed to be 17,000?
Yeah, 17,000.
200 and something maybe?
Yeah, I think it's 2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't have my thing here, so I can't add it up, but yeah, it's 17,000, not the.
Something.
So you would take the other two numbers and add them to that difference. So add 93 or yeah.
Yeah, but then it's 13,679. So.
Correct. But that's, you got to add, you got to take out, you got to subtract out the $93 and the $3,400.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, it's 17 something. I don't remember what I screwed up.
Perfect.
So.
Alrighty, any other questions on the budget? All right, that brings us to zoning, which you haven't met with administrator. Is your, just swap with Kathy.
To go over the budget a little bit quickly. We're mapping, since we don't have GIS, we're not making the income like we were, so that was kind of being dropped down for revenue. One of the other things too, that revenue for mapping, we used to do the plat maps for 4-H and all that. We didn't do it last time, so that's where we kind of lost out on money of our revenue. With Cheryl back in the office, we can probably start doing that again, so we can every other year make extra $5,000 and
Doing the
book
plat.
designs and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Possibilities. So, I mean, it's out there. Increase in expenditures would be the salaries going up. That's all depends on how everything goes, as everything else does. In the past, we've been using a lot of the grant money to pay salaries, and we've been trying to slowly work away from that. Now with no GIS person, it's kind of hard to use that money for salaries when we don't have a position. On the flip side, that helps pay for the contracting and all that stuff. So it's still there that can be used. It's just not looking like we're just paying salaries, because at one time we're paying $130,000 off grant money pay salaries, which anyways, to keep on going on that. So the other thing is the question that we'll be talking about is raising fees. I sent out an email that I sent out to Candace that showed everything. So It's hard to tell, but everything in red is the numbers I've verified. The black is not verified, so you can kind of see the differences. Some were higher, some were lower, so I think basically kind of one of those things like what we'll talk about is going across the board and pretty much $25 on these permits, raising that out, that bring in some money. And where we left off last year was raising that pump-in fee from $25 to $50. Are we still going to do that? If we're not going to do it, I mean, there's going to be a lot of discussion that we're going to try and figure out. So the budget numbers aren't even worth talking about now until we meet and all that.
Right. I mean, as you recall, when our response to the referendum committee was that we committed to cutting the department budget by 50, that was yours 50,000? Between the two of you, $50,000. And so we,
reserve deeds, but there's nothing that they can really cut.
right, yeah. And, we had said we would take Tammy's position to a half-time and that we would raise the fee that he's talking about from $25 to $50. We did not implement that. We just committed to doing that. So, but I don't know what the 5-year plan, I guess Administrator Pesh, I'd like to, as far as the promises that were made for the referendum committee, are we intending to continue those, and are we reevaluating? What are we doing?
I would say at this point that we are reevaluating based on additional revenues, obviously with the state. I will tell you initially, because of the financial situation we're in, that is not going to, I would say, save us by any means.
Right.
There are still plenty of difficult decisions that are going to have to be made and efficiencies that are going to have to be created and all of those things. But yes, I think we are really reevaluating those directives and trying to see what makes sense today and going forward.
I mean, I think we were all fairly comfortable with raising that fee. It didn't seem to be, it would be spread out. It's a use, it didn't seem to be overly financially burdensome, but still, we're all paying more for everything, so every penny counts, but.
Yeah, last time we raised fees was back in 2017. So it's been several years. And people have been paying that $25 for a couple of times.
Right. So, okay. Any other discussion on that budget? All right. That brings us back to our agenda, which should we get to public comment? Do we have anyone who would like to make any comments? All right, that brings us to future agenda items. One thing that I think this will tie into everything we're talking about anyway, but I was just, I was invited to talk to the Climate Change Task Force at Monroe County about the resiliency work that there's a working group within our county that is working towards actually getting some of our hazard mitigation tasks done and things like that. And so I was presenting to that, and I just attended their whole meeting because I was going to be talking to them, and they are doing some amazing, amazing GIS work with interns up there. And so I picked their brains about how do they get them, where do they get them from, all of these different things. And it just, and I talked with Administrator Pesh about, that I think we don't even realize how much information and how helpful GIS information can be in all aspects of everything we do in this county. And so it did give me pause and make me rethink about whether we actually need a body in the office and not just contracting for specific work that's just doing the bare minimum of what we need to do to, meet our bare minimum of services so I think we do want to maybe further discuss. I know we were going to give it a year. We were going to do the contract for a year. But I think originally we were thinking that 2023 was going to be that year where we just tested out the contract. And here we are, just still now just looking at these longer term contracts. So I think we need to dive into that deeper. So I will put that back on the agenda for a more in-depth discussion next month. Yeah, next meeting, because I'll be here for that meeting. Okay, I will. I will. All right. Anyone else have any future agenda items that we need to touch on?
Here.
We do. We always have a lot. That's why it's almost 3 hours later. Okay, that brings us to adjournment. Someone like to make the motion to adjourn? No,
I'll
we want
make
to
a
stay
motion to
longer?
adjourn.
Motion by Fleming, second by Carol. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.